And this board meeting is taking place here at 1 Ryan Ranch Road at the bus maintenance yard. Public participation, for the regular board meeting is available at 19 Upper Ragsdale Drive. And here as well, Carl.
Yes.
And it's been publicly hosted, this meeting. So the meeting will be here, and the meeting is also being held virtually by Zoom. The meeting code is 845-008-36234 and passcode 652252. The board may, the public may also attend by telephone by dialing 669-900-6833 with the same meeting ID code 845-008-36234 with and passcode 652252. Public comments may be made either in person, Zoom, or email. And warning to public speakers, MST is committed to civility and is mindful of its responsibility to protect the work environment, to assure civility in its public meetings. And the public is encouraged to engage in respectful dialogue that supports the freedom of speech, that values diversity of opinion. Failure to engage in a respectful dialogue will forfeit the speaker's right to participate during the public comment. At this time, members of the public may attend and request to speak to the board and the chair when the chair calls for public comment. So at this time, I would like to, we called the meeting to order at 9:03, and I'd like to ask Jeanette to call roll.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Here.
City of Del Rio Oaks.
Here.
City of Gonzales.
Here.
City of Greenfield.
Here.
City of King.
Present.
City of Marina.
Here.
City of Monterey. City of Pacific Grove.
Here.
City of San City.
Here.
City of Salinas.
Here.
City of Seaside.
Here.
City of Soledad.
Here.
And County of Monterey. Okay, you have a form.
Okay, thank you. With that, I would like to ask Director Emilio if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then do we have?
We could look at the pictures.
Yeah, there's
Wall.
pictures.
There's a flag on the screen. There we go. Okay.
Join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 1.3, and this is to conduct a swearing in ceremony of the new board member, Fernando Cabrera. So who would like to do the swearing in? Going to be your attorney, me, you.
I will do it. We have swearing in paperwork. Thank you.
At this time,
I'm going to apologize in advance because of this. We were given less than a week's notice of this event that happened right before this session and moving to here. So I'm a little discombobulated this morning. So, Chair Cabrera, our board member Cabrera, council member Cabrera, please raise your right hand and say aye. Your name?
I, Fernando Cabrera, do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California, of the state of California, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and alliance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
thank you. Welcome.
Is that?
Yeah,
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
yes, that was expedited. With that, we'll move on to item 1 for review highlights of the agenda. Carl?
Thank you, Chair. Give me just a second. Okay, today's board meeting is more of a workshop than a traditional board meeting. If you recall, Board Member Cabrera, you will not recall this, but generally our January board meeting is done as a workshop format to review our progress towards adopted goals and objectives, as well as receive updates from staff on what's happening. And then for items that may have come up during the year that we didn't have time to address properly or thoughtfully in the course of the board meeting, we bring those back. We put those in the parking lot and we bring them back at the board meeting to discuss in further detail. The meeting then helps us as staff as we get into planning the budget and recommending an action plan for the coming fiscal year. This kicks that process off for us. And so with that, just as far as a review of the agenda, we currently have our Employee of the Year and General Manager Excellence Awards, as well as some recognition for 2 board members who will have 10 years of service on this board at this meeting. And then we'll conduct our workshop and conclude. And then afterwards, there will be, for those who are interested, a bus driving opportunity for our board members at the training course. Some of you who did this last year will remember how that worked. And some of us crushed more cones than others. We are going to offer a golden steering wheel to the one who has the least cones hit at our February meeting, and then we're determining who hits the most cones, what they'll get. I'm thinking of a can of Orange Crush. That concludes my review of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. With that, we'll move on to public comment on matters not on the agenda. So at this time, members of the public may address the board on any matter that is not on the agenda at this time for up to 3 minutes. And the public is encouraged to engage in respectful dialogue that supports the freedom of religion, diversity of opinion, and failure to engage in this respectful dialogue may result in speakers being muted or required to leave. The board of the directors will not take the action immediately to any of the public comments presented, but may choose to follow up with at a later time, either with staff or individually. So with that, I will open public comment. At this time, public comment is open.
And Madam Chair, you do have one person online with their hand raised.
Okay, thank you. And can we identify that the speaker and unmute them?
Hi, this is Brian Rosen here. I guess I'm the person that Mr. Cedric, or one of the people that Mr. Cedric has said is misinformed. Apparently, we're just misleading people in our opposition to the SURF project. I didn't feel he was doing respectful dialogue, but that's different. He's part of the power structure, and the rest of us, I guess we can just get shut off real easy. This is something that needs to be addressed. In recent Coast Weekly, now Lisa Reinheimer said that it's $120 million a mile to restore the rail to the area. That seems a little high, but the contrast is TAMSI said it was around $230 million to bring the whole thing back. So that's $120 million a mile, Lisa Reinheimer? What's all that about? And so I think this board needs to really hold the staff accountable and get to the answers, get things presented in a clear manner that's understandable. You know, the $105 million, now they're saying the SURF project is going to cost do any of you really, you think the people are really going to want to vote for Measure X to re-extend it after this? I don't think the SURF project is very popular. You know, for years and years, MST, Mr. Sederick, and also Mr. Muck have been saying that no railroad tracks would be removed because that wouldn't be very popular. Then it turned out the undercover investigations proved there were a lot of railroad tracks that would be removed. And Mr. Sederick said it wasn't a material amount, which wasn't true. And you know, so this is all to get the SURF going through, and there was really no oversight. 105 million. When you get on the freeway, you know, you're not including the off-ramp and on-ramps at Sand City and Marina. It's 4.0 miles on my odometer for $105 million. And it's going to cost $120 million to bring back the rail. Oh, that's just so crazy. You know, there's difference, according to Train Riders Association, can be far cheaper if you do what private railroads do. And I don't necessarily trust authority. Maybe you're all going to just rubber stamp authority and the experts, but I think we really have to question things. Watching these old trains running in Romania, the rail bed looks a lot worse than even in the Fort Ord State Parks area where the railroad tracks are. And the ballast can last over 100 years, so I don't really believe all the underlayment is bad. There are bad places, but some of it is in excellent shape. And we really need independent, fair analysis and oversight. I don't think this is very popular with the public. If you want to keep pursuing it, and you are going to do that, and you're not going to, Mr. Sederick's going to keep calling us misinformed and misleading the public. But I think we ask some legitimate questions that you're not going to answer. And, you know, it's only, if you go down, if Mr. Sederick really makes things clear, it's 2 hours per weekday rush hour in the southbound direction that there's a traffic backup on one side of the freeway. And so this really needs to, you need to all verify that. There are some busy weekends, but it's greatly exaggerated. There are alternatives like a carpool lane, bus on shoulder. And so I can't believe I'm not done with my 3 minutes yet.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen, for your comment.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Public comment is still open.
I don't see anyone else with their hands raised, and I don't see anyone here in the room that is raising their hand or standing up.
Okay. With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to the next item. Thank you for your comment. With that, we will move on to the consent agenda. And there is one item to approve resolution 2025-11 recognizing Jacob Huggins, IT specialist, as employee of the year for 2024. Carl will give us a staff report, please.
Thank you. There he is.
This
This is consent item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
This isn't the
yeah,
presentation. I
yeah.
told you I was just about it.
I was wondering where you were going.
Running for the door.
So this is on page 7, and it's pretty, I was going to say if you would like to give a report on it, it's pretty self-explanatory. So with that, at this time, directors, this item may be approved in a single motion. And of course, any more example, we have a motion for approval and a second. Let's open it up to public comment. Public comment is open. And not seeing anyone, we'll go ahead and close public comment. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion carries.
Madam Chair, who made the second motion?
We had,
Amelia, thank you.
Amelia, thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 4, recognitions and special presentations. And at this time, Carl, we will begin with the 2024 Employee of the Year presentation.
Thank you, Chair.
You're so welcome.
It's my pleasure, just for your board. Your board recognizes each month an employee of the month. The executive team then puts our heads together and say, of that employee of the month, which one do we want to say, displayed some, characteristic, some project or effort that, deserved to be recognized as our employee of the year. And this year, we're very happy to provide that recognition to, Jacob Huggins. Jacob works in our IT, department. And he's been key in our cybersecurity efforts. Jacob came to us from the military. We were able to hire him in, and he had brought a lot of his great training and his background. He's very humble. He's very quiet. He, I'm sure, is horrified right now. Scared here to receive this award, but regardless of that, Jacob, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate your efforts. I started in the transit industry 36 years ago as an IT administrator, running cables through the ceilings of Long Beach Transit and hooking up computers and doing many of the things you do, and you do it so much better than I ever did. It's a lot more complicated now than it was back in those days. So I do appreciate you and everything that you're doing. We see examples on a daily basis of public agencies and transit districts being subject to ransomware and cyber attacks. And you are helping to keep us safe, our community safe, our resources safe. So with that, I want to thank you on behalf of the entire team here at MST. I want to present you with a resolution and a plaque thanking you for being our Employee of the Year for 2024. You can say something. If you don't, you don't have to.
Thank you for bringing me on board. Very happy to continue serving the public.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you. Painless.
And with that, time flies, so I believe it's been less than 2 years, and since he's come on board with MST and as a veteran, and I'm really happy to see you just excel here at MST and keeping us safe and with IT and working with the team. Any of the board, any comments?
Thank you for your service, both before and now. And thanks for doing all the things that many of us don't even understand. Thank you.
And it is on the agenda. Shall I open it up to the public? Or any need to?
There is no need of it. If you want to, you can.
I'll go ahead and open it to the public. So public comment is open. He may have some family online. Okay, not seeing anyone, we'll go ahead and close public, and again, congratulations to you. With that, we will go ahead and move on to the 2024 General Manager Excellence Award. And this is Jared Augusta, Risk and Security Manager.
Thank you. It's my pleasure today. The Employee of the Month, Employee of the Year programs that we developed 30 plus years ago to really recognize our frontline employees, frontline supervision, frontline employees, drivers, mechanics, and those in the trenches day to day. About 15 years or so ago, we thought, well, there should be a program to recognize our management team as well, because they work hard too. And so we came up with the General Manager's Award for Excellence, and it is my award that I interview our leadership team and I observe their team, and I try to find that person who was a difference maker on the team, who did something extraordinary that somehow helped the organization. And I know it seems that surf was the only thing that we did this year, but that's really not true. We've done a lot of other things this year, and our employee of my General Manager Excellence Award today, Jared, is our head of safety training and risk. And after a year ago, from this meeting, when I took your board out to the training course, we must have received 50 or so applications within the following week because we had that televised your board members on the training course. And we, after having years of being understaffed and not being able to have our budgeted workforce and reducing service levels, missing trips because of manpower, we suddenly had a glut of applicants and had to figure out a way to train a class of over 20 coach operators, which is more than we'd ever done in the history of this organization at one time. And we had an all hands meeting, and Jared and his team were stuck with the task of, you got to push 20 plus drivers out. Oh, and by the way, we've got another 10 who still want to come in. And so at one point in time, we had over 30 drivers going through some for either just finishing up or just starting training. And got that accomplished so that for the first time in many, many years, we were able to have a fully a complement of coach operators. There's also mechanics who need training, and the utilities, the people who fuel the buses. Anyone who touches a bus or works on a bus have to go through this group. In addition to that, Jared was key, him and his team, in reviewing the routes, the new circulator routes for Gonzales and Soledad, and making sure the buses had a safe place to turn. In addition to that, Jared and his team had to go out and look at services to Rancho Cielo that we kicked off, finding a safe way in and a safe way out for our drivers to access and provide services for the students of Rancho Cielo. In addition to that, Jared and his team did a number of training exercises with our employees to make certain that they're safely starting their day off and ending their day, something called the pre-trip, post-trip inspections, and also help develop a better way for us to load my wheelchair passengers to avoid accidents that were occurring with our ambulatory able-bodied passengers trying to get on board the bus while a passenger in a wheelchair is being deployed. So Jared and his team have been very, very busy. They made a huge difference this year, both in our ability to provide service, new services, and to provide safe services to our community. And for that, Jared, I know you're not you don't do it on your own, but you do lead the team, lead the parade. So for that, I want to recognize you as a gentleman.
Thank
you. How you doing?
I just am so thankful for MST. I started here 9 years ago, and it's been just a wonderful, wonderful journey. Started a family also 9 years ago, so I have 4 kids now. So in addition to that, I'm also managing that household. So anyhow, I'm just very thankful to the board, and I'm thankful to Carl. I'm also very thankful to Kelly. She's mentored me a lot over the years. So just thank you all so much. Thank you.
Said whether it's hiring or not. Managing 4 kids outside of it. Wow, oh my goodness. Okay, that concludes it. So now.
Thank you. So with that, on behalf of the board, if I could
We need to do some pictures.
simply say thank you for your service.
Let's do, can we call the chair and vice chair up for some photos? Yeah, we don't have a lot of room for photos, but
You can right there outside the lobby, hold it in the back.
there we go. It's $22 million check.
Yeah.
And we can stand up.
Yeah. A little bit more room here.
Yeah.
Whenever you're set.
No, we say more. Very quiet. I would want to take a years with this one.
Okay, the next one's for you. Okay. Legal sense of the bar. They're both the same.
Kids were.
Just don't give one of them two. You'll be all right. Want your stuff? Yeah. Here we go.
Late Christmas. Okay. Cool.
And then, moving on to 4.3, this is, at this time, I'd like to, give out a couple recognitions for two of our board of directors, and, they are, Director Mike Labar, who was sworn in on January 12th, 2015. And he has, today, well, yeah, close, it's the 10-year milestone.
Yeah.
And,
you're one thing.
also, another director, Dave Jaco, Seaside representative on this, MST board. And he also was sworn in January 12th, 2015. And also celebrates the anniversary of 10 years. So thank you for your service.
Or just hand it to them.
Okay. Well, I don't want to stick them, so what I will do is I am going to ask if they would like to say anything.
It's an absolute pleasure to work with such a high quality and high functioning board. Thank you. This is one of the best boards that I work on. And I gotta say, the other two boards that are the best are also in Monterey County. So we're very, very fortunate to have such great people. Thank you, Chair.
And we are very lucky to have such great dedicated board members. And with that, I'm gonna come over and I won't make Dave walk too far. Dave, first, thank you so much. You've been on this board longer than me, both of you, so you have two diamonds on your hand, so I'm envious. Thank you for your service. We'll make it like that in our class. Lab words.
Just briefly, it's just an honor to see a professional team be so effective in all they do. I'm jealous of which our city would operate so effectively. But it's a great team of operations, and just to watch a team work so effectively together to include the board is very much an honor. Thank you.
We're good. Draw pictures.
No pictures.
Okay. With that, we have no public comments. We do have an action item, which is 6.1, to conduct a strategic planning workshop. And with that, the first item is for year 2023 through 2025, the strategic plan and 2-year action plan status update, and Carl will fill us in.
So starting on, I believe, page 59 of your packet, I provided an update on your board adopted plan and where we stand as of 12/31. This section, I don't have a formal presentation. This section, as far as staff updates, are really here for your board to have reviewed. And then if you have any specific questions about where we stand with regard to the status of the action plan, the report is there, has been there for your review. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carl. So at this time, any questions to Carl regarding this item? I'm not seeing any. Well, I'm gonna go ahead, and open it up to the public comment. Public comment is open. For the record, if you could state your name. And the comments, are limited to 3 minutes. So public comment is open. Online, I do not believe. Okay, we'll close public comment and bring it back to board. So, and do we need to do anything? Just
No, if you have, something that we are nearing the end of the 4-year. Plan. So, historically, our board has done a facilitated workshop for each multi-year plan, and then we do these types of updates every year. So, I'll be seeking, consultants to help facilitate the next 4-year workshop sometime between now and June. And if you have worked with anyone who's particularly good that you like, you can recommend to me, or if there's someone that you don't want me to reach out to, you can let me know otherwise as well. So if you have input on strategic planning facilitators, you don't have to do it at this meeting, but just send me an email or a phone call, and I'll happy to respond appropriately.
thank you. Okay, moving on to planning and innovation update and emerging items. This would be Michelle Obermeyer at page 9.
Yep. So as I mentioned, for these executive leadership team updates, staff is here and can do a presentation in order to keep your time focused on the new things that are coming up, provide direction. If you have a question, staff is here to respond. If you don't, we can move on to the next.
Also. So director, questions or comments, and I'll recognize the ring.
Yes, I just have a comment. I just wanted to share with the board that I did take the circulator bus on Friday.
Oh, good.
So I was able to go all the way around Gonzales and stop at each stop to see where we're going. And I had Angel as my driver. He was very good, very professional, very kind, all of that. And I asked, obviously, Friday was the 9th, I believe. So we've just started on the 2nd. And I asked them how many people they'd had, and they said, not very many yet, but I did post it on Facebook, and we do have a city council meeting tonight, so I am gonna bring it up again and encourage everyone to take the circulator. So anyway, it was smooth sailing when I went on, so I just want to let you guys know that.
Thank you. Thank you for writing.
You bet. I'm gonna do it again.
Okay.
A few more times.
Any other directors at this time? And if not, we'll go ahead and move to public comment on this item. Public comment is open. And we'll go ahead, no one from the public, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And the information is in your binder here, so with that, Pearl, anything we need to?
No, I do, would just, point out, I think it's worth noting in the report, with regard to the line 23, our South County service, highest ridership since 2015. That is something that, it's a great thing to have, but it's also creating some capacity issues for us. And for those of you who were at the San Jose conference, I may have printed out a double-decker bus. Because after going through the South County circulator process, we learned how the priority of curb space in these communities. And so one way you can increase capacity without having a longer bus is to have a taller bus. So more to come on that, where that is one way of handling the capacity needs without increasing our operating costs by adding drivers and adding the number of vehicles. We could actually, like you do with housing, right? In your own cities, you build up instead of out. So we may be seriously looking at double-decker options, at least throughout South County in the near term.
Thank you, Carl. With that, we'll move on to the next item, and that is administration, capital projects and emerging issues. Lisa Reidenheimer had a staff report. It's on page 17. And directors, do you have any comments at this time? Not seeing any.
Well, we saw what our activities are gonna be, this for major capital projects, so we experienced a little bit that this morning before our meeting with the delivery of $23 million and an allocation pending in March of $25 million, sets us up to be under contract and starting our construction activities, as early as April.
Okay.
All good.
Okay. With that, we'll open it up to the public. Public comment is open. And not seeing any public comment, we'll close public comment. And Carl, give us a little bit of an update that is in your report. With that, we will go ahead and move on to the next item. Which is number 3, Human Resource Department update and emerging issues. Kelly has given us a report. It's on page 19. Directors, do you have any questions regarding this report at this time? Sorry to be looking there. I did have I guess I could comment. Carl, and this is in regards to the Narcan implementation of Narcan use at MST. So I noticed that in July, it was brought up by a board member that we would look at approving MST storage, distribution and administration of the Narcan policy, which allowed us to have some staff trained, CPR trained for emergency situations. I was wondering, as we continue to engage in the conversations with ATU leadership about having Narcan aboard buses. And I seen that there was a subject, this is maybe a subject that they don't really want to talk about it unless it comes to the negotiating in the future. Can you update us?
Kelly, this is Kelly's report. I'll let her take a crack at it. She works with it more closely.
Kelly Halkin, Chief Human Resources Officer. That is correct. It would be a change in their wage and hours and practices. So it is potentially a negotiation issue. I tried to see if we could do kind of like a side letter sweep around it. That did not fly. There is potentially money tied to this in their eyes. So that's kind of where we are at with the situation, unfortunately.
Okay, and not to hold anyone's feet to fire or anything, I just did want to bring that up. Put it forward.
Well, and if I can interject a little bit, there is an uptick in our counties in fentanyl. I don't know if you've been reading the statistics on it. It is a concern, and I've talked to our fire chief about it. I understand that we have to go around a certain way, and it would involve higher wage, but it is something that I still think we need to look at some point.
That is that is not off my radar. It's just, we are not at the table as of yet. You will hear something more on negotiations next month in closed session. But we even tried to have the conversation, just having materials on the bus. And, that was still a feeling of the AT leadership was that it needs to be negotiated.
Thank you.
And you kind of just answered that.
Yeah.
Which actually frustrates me to hear that there should be no reason why it can't be available for the public to use if they want to. And that should not impede or become part of any contract negotiation, because how is that different than a pamphlet? So,
Is there a legal ramification?
More to come.
Okay.
You know, it's a bit of a dance that we're going through right now. And we hear your board's direction pretty loud and clear. We just have to find a nuanced approach that will get us there. And I would say this staff is nothing, if nothing else, we're creative. So I have no doubt we'll find a way to get there.
I'm positive of that too. It's just that you hate to be in these in-between times when something could happen. And it'd be nice if just a regular citizen left a bag or a box full on a bus and we just didn't pick it up till the end of the day. But I mean, it does suck that we have to go this route for something so easily with no legal liability to it, to anybody who uses it. So that's my last comment.
My hope is that when we're at the table, there is another player that sits at the table that we're hoping will provide more insight and help in moving this forward.
Thank you. With that, I am going to acknowledge, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Kelly, on the driver's safety, I know that's a section, and we're all always concerned about that, or I am. I'm sure everybody is, but do you see any uptick in regards to drivers, or does?
Sorry, I just did a look at Norm. We did see an uptick in the recent months, particularly after November. From the beginning of November until now, there was a big uptick in situations. And so there is, with our drivers, there's more training that needs to be done. As well as there is equipment on the bus that can help as well. And so there needs to be some retraining on that with the drivers about using that to help evade certain situations. And the other thing is Norm is leading a group through the small ops committee or the operations committee at CTA, and this has come up as well. So our hope is that there was some legislation that was trying to be put together for steeper punishments for individuals who attack transit operators in particular. That unfortunately didn't move anywhere at the state level. And so my understanding is ATU, possibly Teamsters, have joined forces as well as CTA staff. And there's another move to put something together to make it more hefty, that hopefully will deter individuals from assaulting transit workers. And I'm gonna put it forth that discussion came more quickly after the hijacking at LA Metro. And so, which was, I hate to say it, sometimes these big incidences actually bring a light to situations that are happening. So it's our hope that something will happen. And also we're hopefully, there will be an easier process to, one of the talks is making it an easier process to get restraining orders for public transit. Right now, it's extremely difficult. And in Monterey County, it's very difficult to get a restraining order if a driver is assaulted. Most judges in the area would want to just give it to the driver themselves, not recognizing that this individual is wreaked havoc in the system in general. And it really should be across the board for the whole system.
Thank you. Is there a particular line that shows more incidents? I'm just curious.
We're trying to plot some of that, but it would be your higher ridership areas. So line 20 has been problematic in the past. We've had situations on line 23. Some of the 40s are problematic. So jazz, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Director Ferreira, did you like to comment?
Yeah, just looking at that, I think, I think the biggest concern is the driver. Just imagine you're hired to be a driver, now you gotta be a social worker, mental health and whatever. Building morale, building where the driver feels that they are being supported. I would like to know, well, especially in Salinas, because that's the part. I wanna make sure that police are there, whether the state reacts or not. This is a serious thing, because all it takes is one serious incident for a driver to go through and where are we at with that as far as?
Well, as you know, board member Herrera attended a meeting with Michelle Overmeyer and myself with the city of Salinas staff and some public safety staff, as well as a member of the police force joined us. And the incidents that we're having in particular are around red curve enforcement around schools during student drop off and pickup times, where very highly utilized bus stops, parents will pull in to drop off their children. Well, it's more of a problem in the afternoon where they sit and wait for the child to come. The bus can't pull into its bus stop. The driver's now missing a stop. People want to get on, get off. Traffic builds up. We've had our drivers blocked in by passengers, threatened by parents. As we reported in that meeting, the actual school staff have stopped engaging in these because the school staff have been threatened by parents. So we're trying to work with PD. And we were told to report it to their system. Found out that we are reporting it to their system, we're reporting it to their parking control system, not necessarily to their emergency system. So we have to figure out, with each police department, how do they want it reported. We had an officer from Monterey come and do some training with our frontline supervisory staff that was very helpful to help us learn how to communicate appropriately to the police when we want an actual police response. And it's a fine line. You don't want to underreport, but you also don't want to overreport and cry wolf either. So there's particular words they want us to use. So we're teaching our frontline supervisors how to better engage with police dispatchers and communications to better ensure a timely response. But due to staffing issues, and as you heard in the city, sometimes it's difficult to get a police officer to actually respond. Nonetheless, we're being asked to report it anyway because they're logging it in their systems, and hopefully they'll see patterns and deploy as the resources become available. So we make certain that our union knows that we're having these outreach activities occur with the various police departments and what the responses are, so that they can report back to the rank and file that it's not that we don't care or that we're not doing anything. We're just not able. We don't have enforcement authority. Something that as a board we may want to consider giving some of our employees on not violent crimes or anything like that, but for red curb parking. Do we want to, as a district, there's a potential for us to be able to give our frontline supervisors the staff to ticket have been powered a ticket. I don't know if that's a solution or not. Other transit operators do that. But it might help us in some of these situations, but I certainly don't want our frontline supervisors to be engaging in trying to deal with people who may be under the influence or having psychotic breakdowns and acting out. There are trained professionals for that, and we just need to be able to count on them.
Also, in addition, I'm working with AT leadership to encourage drivers to, when approached by PD and asked if they want to press charges, it's always a yes. It's never a no, it's always a yes. So we've had that where some of our drivers, they just don't want to engage. And so they have told PD when they do respond, no, I don't want to press charges. No, it's a yes, every single time.
And just quickly, Madam Chair, if I may, so what happens with that yes? What's the outcome of it?
There's many different outcomes.
So is there no arrest, but
Sometimes there's arrest, but you have to keep in mind whether the DA wants to take it. In our county, that's problematic as. Is that newsworthy enough? I'm just gonna throw it out there. Is that newsworthy enough? No, so that's, the DA hasn't really picked up those cases very frequently. But it helps in getting the report so that you can get the restraining, you can work toward getting the restraining order. That's the other part. So it's kind of like, there's many prongs approaches to this. Michael and I've worked on five over the years. And each one's been completely different, so. Just depends.
yeah, Madam Chair, just one last comment. If I think morale is huge when it comes to having a good workplace. I just want to make sure that the drivers get the message where they're not by themselves, they're very supportive. We're supporting them, and I can imagine how I've been on the bus several times, and I can just imagine the driver trying to do their job, and then all of a sudden there's issues like this. It's not easy.
Well, I think education is a
Yeah.
huge tool to that.
Yeah.
So we have BTT training that's annual, and so each driver has to do 8 hours throughout the year. So both myself, my staff, Jared, who's in there, and my team, as well as Norm and Marzette come in, and these are conversations that are had where they have situations in the bus, they may not have reported them, and we explain why it's important to report them, or we educate them on the process itself. They don't, all they know is what happened on the bus at that moment, and they don't always understand the back end of what happened or why is it taking so long. The court systems take a while sometimes. So it all just depends. And so really it's about education, training, and also telling them why, what's the importance, because if it's not, maybe it's a minor thing to them, but for the next person that comes behind them, it could be even bigger.
I'd like to acknowledge Director Fisher and then Director Smith.
Yeah, just one more question, and you probably already answered it. So are the drivers being educated about what happens when they press charges? And I'm asking this because as a very young employee, I filed a police report in a very criminal city. And in my innocence, I gave my own home address, not realizing that would be in the report for the other party to see where I live. So are they being trained what will happen if they press charges and what the consequences might be for them?
Let's just put it this, more times than not, they don't press charges.
But do they know what happens? If
They're
they press
well
charges, that they will be
aware
protected?
of, that's why sometimes they don't press charges, particularly in Salinas. They don't want to press charges because of their fear of retaliation.
Yeah, but so can it be avoided? Do they know well, their name will be in the report, of course, but are they protected if it goes through the system?
They could always give MST address.
Yeah, so they need to know that.
Yes, but this is an education process, so this kind of has a pendulum swing, as all issues happen with employees, where you educate. Nothing happens for a while, and then all of a sudden it comes back around and they forget because it hasn't happened in a long time, so you have to re-educate. We also have change in sometimes AT leadership, so you're re-educating AT leadership because they're the ones who help with the back channel conversations. Your leadership, your union leadership, they're the ones that are out there and they hear the rumors or they hear the off comments. And then they can help educate as well in those moments when you're not present to be able to do that. So it's, as I said, it's all an education process. It's gonna be wrapped into some new training that we're doing for 2025.
Thank you for what you're doing. Not easy. Yeah.
Director Smith.
Yeah, thank you. All very important touchstones through a whole process of, not only the safety, but also that the drivers, employees know that there are policies that back it up. On the consistency, I'm wondering, do we currently have a safety manual that is specifically for the difficult clients or the incidents that happen while in transit? Is there a manual that tells them what to do when an incident occurs? So it would start with, a static manual that's updated annually. But also I'm seeing on the way to contact emergency services and responses, while they're mobile, a lot of times the incidents are dramatic enough where they have to stop. And so they are contacting local law enforcement. Well, because the County of Monterey, every single agency uses Monterey County Emergency Communications for the contact for officer dispatch and to the public, with the exception of Carmel. And a variety of fire stations, every single law enforcement agency goes through county com. But each one of the contact points is a phone number for each of those agencies. So are we publishing the phone numbers for the city emergency response? If it's not 911, it's a number for Monterey, it's a number for Sun City, it's a number for Seaside, Salinas. Do we have those numbers published in the buses?
Okay, so there's a couple questions there, so let me take each one individually. The first one is there a safety manual or something to help with that the drivers can follow? They have quite a few documents that they are given. One is they have a coach operator manual that Norm staff has put together. They update it. I work with them on updating that. And that is their SOP Bible. So it tells them, step by step what to do with every situation that happens on their bus and our policies and whatnot. Two is that our encouragement for our drivers is that they call things in or they deal with that through our comm center. Our comm center has all the numbers and they're the ones who talk with police or emergency services to make that connection. And in particular, there's a button on the bus that our drivers can push that opens up the radio that everything is heard through the whole system. So that if there's an emergency situation and they're in a situation where they're scared and they can't communicate or pick up the phone because they think there's going to be some type of violent interaction, they can press that button and it opens up the radio system and then we can get emergency services to them in a hurry. They're trained on that. That's talked about in VTT. It's part of their new hire coach operator training that happens for the 8 weeks. They have a binder that's given to them for coach operator training. It's about this big and it has sections in there for all these things. We also have our service exclusion policy and that has SOPs within it. And that is a rare document that not many transit agencies in the state of California, let alone the United States, have. That's something I worked with FTA, Civil Rights Department on over 10 years ago. And so that allows our operations supervisors to actually exclude people from the services based on the type of action or infraction they have. That's helped us with PD as well, of letting them know, somebody's excluded. This is why we need you to get them off our property. I'm just thinking the line of things, all this stuff. But we do have a bunch of documents and certain things for the drivers themselves. And Norm staff is trained on who to contact with. I mean, we have a lot of emergency situations that happen in our service any given day. And so, yes, they have those numbers. The drivers, some of them also get a hold of some of these numbers. But they also just call comm center on their cell phones and stop the bus or get off. They've done, I mean, if the situation is whatever, they will, they know what to do. We get it figured out.
And I can give you offline a couple of numbers of people to contact, because it seems like if you feel that some of the cases are not being filed when they should be filed, then there are some training elements in terms of how to report the incident, but also once the incident's reported, there's some follow-up things that agencies should do. And if they're not, we should connect you with that training that the DA's office could provide you.
We actually, Jared, just to let you know,
Yes,
and Norm staff, they are filing reports through those things for Salinas PD and Monterey PD. So they've got those contacts.
Yeah.
They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's just Salinas. We have bigger issues in Salinas than we do
Especially.
in other places.
well, Tony, you got it fixed though.
Shows up to meetings with me and the PBs.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's a big one and there's a lot of moving parts because you're dealing with so many different cities and different systems and then driver turnover. But I think you might want to, just one last suggestion on in the bus training, when they're coming on board, develop something that is akin to a role play to test the.
We have that as well. That is all. We have a lot of,
Here,
yeah, we have an emergency situational role play. We do that at week 5.
yeah, good.
And people, they're given roles. I
Yeah.
play a really good crazy person.
Sure. Yeah. Just one last comment on the unruly comment or unruly customers and threats and disturbances. There's, from the law enforcement side, it's frustrating because I've had thousands of those cases and it's difficult to explain to the victim that, well, it does not meet the elements of the crime. In the statute, it's very specific. And so having more definition of what you saw, what you heard, what they said to you, how you felt and all of that, it's important. And I think the liaison training, and it's good to hear that Monterey PD has been involved, Salinas PD has been involved. We don't want to exclude the sheriff's office and the other 11 agencies, but it all comes down to, is the DA going to file it and is the evidence there? But sometimes there's insufficient evidence and sometimes there is. But I would encourage that the safety manager continue to work through the DA's office to get the right person where they listen, where they know that this problem is bigger than just one case. And I think the continued explanation with really complete comprehensive police reports with accurate statements is the key. And yes, they can use the agency's address. They don't have to use their own personal address. We used to do that all the time. So, but thanks, and thanks for your patience.
Thank you, directors. I'd like to recognize Director Barron, and then we'll go to Director Alejo.
Thank you. So, as some of you know, I've actually been on the bus during one of these incidents. And Tony, it was not in Salinas.
Was it in Pacific Grove?
In Boston. No, that's all I will say. That's all I will say about that. But while my fellow bus rider actually had a friend, I coerced a friend into taking the bus with me. And while she wasn't particularly happy about the situation, I was happy to report that the situation itself was resolved with expediency and efficiency by the driver, with a combination of the driver and the supervisor from the nearby bus transit place and staff at the headquarters. And I was fairly impressed.
Thank you, Chad.
So
Thank you, Director Elect.
Yeah, and I just wanted to follow up on the restraining orders, because obviously when a driver is willing to press criminal charges, the other good part about that is not only that you hold the person accountable for their behavior in criminal court, but the criminal court has the power to issue a criminal restraining order. On the civil side, there's different types of restraining orders, but the one most relevant here is the workplace violence restraining order. And those are usually, you file by paperwork only, by affidavit, right? And you get, the judge usually, if there's enough there, will grant it until the court hearing 3 weeks, usually 3 weeks later. And that's where every situation will be a little bit different depending on the facts. And depending on the individual, if he's had one incident or more, the judge will take all that into account, ideally. But the only piece I wanted to add was, because every county now has the mobile crisis support groups. Monterey County created theirs last year, Santa Cruz County this year. There's 2 programs, one particular to Salinas, because the city of Salinas gave some grant funding to have a pilot program within their city, and then there's one for the rest of the county. So I know these are difficult because of a driver's on a route, you know, to have somebody wait there, it'll be, it's more difficult, I know, in that situation. But it just seems like perhaps the health department might be able to see how those teams might be able to respond to an individual where the police may not be able to get there in time, and see how we might be able to incorporate that mobile crisis team to intervene.
We have some really high quality video and audio tools at our disposal, and we train our drivers to, you know, actually, they can direct the passenger if they're able to take direction to certain locations next to the bus where we know the camera and microphones will catch the best quality. So we try to work with the PD on that as well. And I encourage the police department saying, you may want to respond to these because this person may, you know, be on probation or something. And this might be the event that gets them off the street for you, right? I try to encourage that we have this available, and it's been very useful. That audio and video that we capture has been useful and used in some pretty high profile convictions of people they were somewhere else when next, but we show that they were actually in the city nearby because our bus. So we do have a good relationship with PD, and I meet with the Police Chiefs Officers Association. It's the Association of Monterey Bay Police Chiefs, I think. They meet regularly, and at least once a year or every other year, I make time to get out in front of them and talk to them about our security platforms here at MST.
Well, specifically, Salinas has a brand new chief, so
yep,
that's probably worth extra.
Yep. Tried to do that, and I was sent a sergeant.
Yeah.
Made the appointment with the chief, but I got the sergeant, but that's okay. We keep going.
Monterey Chief Hober is the chair of that association.
Yeah.
I'll get on their agenda.
Yeah, I think they meet monthly.
Yeah, that's all.
With that, just before we go out to the public, just a question, because does the driver's doors, I know they have the separation, but if there were, and it's kind of open, but do they lock off to the public? Do they close or lock? I mean, if someone tried to take over.
Not currently, but we're working on a project that ties into our ramp safety campaign that we're doing. Where there's going to be a magnet on the driver barrier door that can actually snap together, and it would block off the rest of the bus, and then they would have that open. We're gonna have to work through a process with our union, that's a meeting number, process of an SOP of when to use that and when not to use that. So it's a brand new thing that we have. Fabricators we're working over the holidays on the magnet. And then we're gonna start installing it sometime at the end of this month. Yeah.
And there is a way for a driver to disable a bus so that somebody else can't take control of the vehicle. And we've actually had a driver do that in someone attempted to hijack a vehicle, and the driver was able to surreptitiously disable the bus. And you have to have special training to know how to turn the bus back on, and it's not from inside the vehicle, and, this person got frustrated and left. Then was shortly taken away. Anyway, so there are, ways to disable a vehicle.
Okay, mechanisms in place. Okay, thank you. With that, I am going to, if there's no other directors, I've got comments. I'll go ahead and open this up to the public. Public comment is open. And not seeing any public comment, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And I'd like to thank Kelly for her staff report and for taking all the questions from the board. So thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, 6A4, Operations and Maintenance Department update with emerging issues. Norm, this is on page 23 in your agenda. And, are there any questions, directors, this time in regards to the report? And not seeing any at this time, we'll go ahead and open this up to the public. Public comment is open. Do you see anyone on Zoom?
There is one hand raised.
Okay. Welcome, and at this time, public comment is open, and for the record, if you could please state your name and your comment. And we have 3 minutes for your comment. Thank you.
This is Brian Rosen. Are we on number 4, MST land utilization discussion? And maybe I shouldn't be talking right now.
We're not there yet.
No, not
Oh,
yet.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, anyone else for public comment on this item? And this is operations and maintenance department update and with emerging issues.
And just for clarification of the public, we are on action item 6-1A1I. I see no number.
No. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and close the public comment. And we will go ahead and move on to yes, before we move on, Director Darren.
Thank you. So the last item on this, in this section is hydrogen fuel infrastructure and buses. Is that right?
Right.
Want to make sure we're there. I would like to see the board more involved in everything surrounding hydrogen. Like, we don't see, even on the operations committee, I don't think we see it a lot. In terms of, there are a lot of challenges that are listed here. And I would really like to see the operations committee and the board more involved in sort of understanding what those challenges are and what we're doing to overcome it. That seems, it seems problematic to me. And I think it seems problematic to me because I don't have the visibility or the knowledge into the things that are actually listed in this agenda item.
We can, on a future operations committee meeting, have Norm and staff provide a hydrogen fuel cell state of the technology. And
Yeah, I don't think it's with respect, I don't think it's really that. Like, when we have been at the operations committee during the planning and rollout of the SURF project, we were pretty much kept up to date in terms of the permitting and the money and all that, and maybe not the money, but the permitting and what was going on with all that sort of as we go. And I would prefer, as one of the committee members, I would prefer that we were kept up to date on, we should definitely have a briefing, because it's been a while since we have done that. But I would prefer to have, 10 minutes, every month or every other month or whatever it is, just to review the state of where we are. Because it sounds like, this is a difficult problem. It's not that far off, in where we are. And I think it's time to sort of start cracking tracking where we are in the implementation of this technology.
And I think we have a discussion later on this agenda, on this very thing, the zero emission bus transition plan. Would they be the starting point
Yeah,
for
it seems
future
like-
updates?
It seems like the transition towards electric powered buses or battery powered buses seems to be easier and smoother. In terms, it's sort of, those are advances in sort of known technology. And so that seems to me distinctly different from the implementation of on the line 23 or whatever it is on the longer routes where we will need hydrogen. Right now, we will need hydrogen powered buses. They seem like different problems to me.
You're correct.
So,
They are.
so I'd like to, again, I'd just like to be more involved in the rollout of that.
Okay, we'll make a note of it and figure out an appropriate way to provide updates on that.
And Carl, would that be under the general manager report as well as the committee bringing?
Yeah, within the general manager's report, there you get an operations update from Norm and who's gosh. You're on the zero emission bus resource alliance task force. Norm's on a number of committees throughout the state that is meeting and talking about these challenges, if not monthly, quarterly. So we'll make sure that some of the information that he's bringing in and sharing with me gets shared through the general manager's report. We'll create a new section, at least to start with, and then we'll organically let it go, see how we can provide more information, because it's not a small amount of money. It's very resource driven, and your board should be up to speed on this. So I think it's a good thing for you to be asking for this.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other directors before we move on? And if not, we will go ahead and move on to the next item. Item 6.4.5. This is information technology and cybersecurity update and emerging issues on page 31. This is Michael Coleman. If you have any questions from the directors at this time, were there any questions? Director?
Yeah, so 180,000 taps a year. How many taps do we have across the whole system? How many boardings do we have?
Yeah.
On-
So currently taps are contactless is a little less than 10% of total transactions.
And so where, it says, I know that our goal is to, retire the legacy fare payment system at the end of 2026. Where are we on track to do that? Is 10% where we expected or hope to be, or
10% isn't bad, but we need to significantly find a way to ramp up taps. And one way we think of doing that, we have about half of our taps are currently on what are called the MST Go cards. And that is our own self-produced card that uses a mag strip rather than a tap. And what we're investigating is, can we use a bank issued card that has the same technology as a bank card, but is only usable on public transit, perhaps just MST to start with, that a user can purchase, $5-10 worth preloaded on the card, and then load that up. And then for that to be same technology, San Luis Obispo Transit, Santa Cruz Transit, and Santa Barbara Transit have all committed to the same technology. We may be able to do something like a regional type of card, like the Clipper card in the Bay Area, that would be a fraction of the cost, because we wouldn't be developing our own banking system. We'd be using the banking rails, and we just have to provide the physical cards to our passengers whether they have, and they wouldn't have to have a bank account then. They could just have this transit card that could only be used for transit, but could be possibly used for every transit operator who's part of the system. That's something we want to come back to your board on. We're doing research right now. That would be the first step. Because then we would be at 60% of our transactions could be now capping.
Let me ask a question. We have this goal of getting rid of, the legacy fare system by the end of 2026. Is that because each time someone pays with money, we have a cost, or is it because the whole infrastructure of paying with money has a cost? Like,
Yes.
so we're interested about, do we know why the 90% of people don't use the system yet? Like, have we asked, not the people that use the system, not me or the people that I ride the bus with, do we know why people use cash? Have we actually asked them, like, what their hurdles are? Like, you're talking about getting a card, but will that work for these people who don't?
We are going to get that information before we move, before we move forward. We're in this year will be the year of our biennial customer surveys that we do every other year. And we ask specific questions. We're going to be asking very specific questions about, are they using the cards? Why or why not? And what's the is it just habit? We know people are okay with using cards because they're using them. Why haven't they transitioned to a bank card? Is it because the perception is they don't want to deal with a bank and they have to have a bank account? Because that isn't necessarily the case. There are Cash App and other tools out there that would allow the person not to have to get a bank account. But there is in certain segments of the communities we serve just a general distrust of banks. They may trust transit, they may trust us more than they trust the bank. So that's kind of the thought of, oh, well, we'll use the same technology the bank's using on the card, but just brand it with MST. And that might overcome that hurdle, if that's what it is. We need to get the data first.
So pardon my ignorance, but are we trying to get rid of cash collection, or are we also trying to get rid of the paper cards?
We would want to get rid of, the goal is to eventually get rid of cash collection on board the buses. That would be the.
That's when this report says we're tired of our legacy fare collection system. That basically means, does that mean cash, or does that mean nobody uses cash anymore, or is it more than that?
It's slightly more than that, in that we issue a MAG card that's only good on MST only. So we would want to issue a stop collecting cash, allow people to purchase cards, say, instead of at one of 3 MST customer service locations, be able to purchase a card, an MST card, wherever you can buy a gift card, 7-Eleven or Costco or Rite Aid or Walmart. Increase our point of distribution greatly. Eliminate collection of cash on board the bus. And then get rid of this old MAG stripe technology and replace it with the same contactless technology, RFID, that's currently on what you see in a debit or credit card. So it's a both change in accepting currency and a move to the contactless technology chip on a card, whether it's a bank card or an MST issued card. Is that clear? Okay. Sometimes I don't know.
I have the same sort of concerns about this that I have about hydrogen, a lot less, but.
Some of the issues that we're having, especially with cash, first of all, the machines break down a lot. The ones that have cash.
Can I say?
We can't get Brinks to even show up to collect cash anymore. We went out to bid and got zero responses from the armored car carriers to collect cash. So that creates a big problem for us.
Okay, Director Mike?
Just quickly to follow up on that, as we're going through this process, for me, it is actually, I think, the location of where you tap on. Because it is something where you normally go in, right, it's right here, is where you put the cash. the tap machine needs to be there clearly identified, cash should be separate. Because it is. It's just counterintuitive, when you go like that, it's like, oh, where do I go? And I think you have to literally ask the driver, where do I go? And they point to, it's over here. Those little things make a big difference, so making the easy choice, that choice.
Yes, we're just, with that cash machine bolted into the bus.
I know.
Then we have ADA restrictions where the chairlift is and all that, you know, there's reasons why the contactless machine is where it is. If we could get rid of that cash box, we could then put the contactless card in a better place.
Thank you, Director Worthy.
I just wanted to bring up that when I tried to go on to the circulator bus, I did not have cash. I wanted to use the contactless and it was broken. So I just want you to know that, which I thought was very
That's
interesting.
fair for that to be
Yeah.
broken, so.
So he said, I'm sorry, I don't have that. And I looked at it and knew that it wasn't effective and I didn't have it.
So what day was that?
That
Well,
was
cut-
on Friday.
Okay, Friday
Yeah.
Gonzalez. All right.
Definitely, we will touch base because I definitely want more information about that.
You got it. I just thought it was interesting since we were talking about eliminating cash and he
Yeah,
wanted
so
cash.
Mike Pullman, Chief Information Officer of Iowa Salinas Transit, for our folks who are tuning in. You know, to say that we're spending a lot of time focusing on this right now would almost be an understatement. Last week, for example, and it kind of ties into this, which is why I wanted to make that suggestion real quick, is we did 8 hours of scoping sessions last week on designing systems that are gonna better monitor that technology on our buses, so if something doesn't complete, if something doesn't go through, I'm not finding out the next day, but I'm actually seeing in real time what those activities are.
Thank you. I'd like to just throw in a little comment, and that is, as we're talking about this or investigating these, cards, in your steps. And you come up with whatever, for not only the buses, would that card be interchangeable as to using with taxi the taxi vouchers?
That's the dream.
Also.
Could be. Again, I'll put one out there. LA Metro actually has piloted a similar program down there, and I don't think it's a perfect fit for what we're doing, but I think they're doing a lot of things that are absolutely worth looking at. Where they came up with what they call the Visa Mobility Wallet, and that was exactly it. It got rides not only on the Metro system, but they could rent, somebody could get an e-bike. Somebody could get a cab taxi voucher with it. It was limited to transportation only, but it was a little bit of a broader umbrella.
So there's something called a VIN number, without getting too, within your card that can identify a mobility, taxi cab, paratransit, bus, e-bike. And there's a way to lock down a card. If it's not a bank issued card, if it's your own card, you can say it's only good for these purposes. So that's a little broader vision. We want to just get it to work on the bus consistently and then to the rides program. And then to the rest of it. So it's gonna be a series of steps if we can get the technology to work. And again, very rare to have one broken. So we're gonna find out about that.
Yeah, that really perked my ears up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
All the details.
Yes.
Since it was a little, I knew I was coming today, so I think I'm gonna tell you today. Yeah.
They can begin that earlier.
I know.
And any other comments, from the directors, and then I will recognize.
Just a reminder, your board ID cards allow you to ride the service for free.
I need one, a new one. Oh, that's my.
We can work on that, but I
Thank
just wanted to make that reminder.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
The perks.
And thanks for your contribution.
Bad contribution.
I would point out, as Carl knows, that I have actually been denied the ability to use my board ID card when the year was actually out of date by one of our bus drivers. So be sure that that little sticker.
It doesn't always work. You don't pay.
Oh, yeah, and as I pull it out, I'm sure it doesn't say 2020.
I guarantee you it does not.
Did they call the police on you?
No, that's never real. Worse.
Any other directors before I open it up to public comment?
So
Director.
will we get our 25 stickers?
Yeah.
Today?
All right.
Today?
Jeanette just shot up the door.
No, Kelly, to get, I might just clean the door. It's like.
So Jeanette, they're wondering about updating our little year for our,
Yeah, we just need to get the stickers, I think, from our service department, and then I'll get them out to you this one.
okay, thank you.
Veronica's gonna have your card at the next meeting.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to open this up to public comment. Public comment is open.
There are 2 members online with their hand raised.
We will, go ahead and move to public comment, and if you could please state your name and your comment for 3 minutes. We are discussing information technology and cybersecurity update.
Brian Rosen here. What happens if the cash machine is broken? Do the riders get to ride for free, or do you trust the rider to be honest? San Francisco and certain cities banned businesses from not being able to take cash because, well, there's so many people that didn't have banks. Lower income people, blacks, Latinos. Now I understand that this would, maybe you'd try to give the cards to people, but what about newcomers in town? What about people that lose their cards? There's also a group of people that values their privacy and just likes to use cash for things. Cash is king. And we don't see businesses refusing to take money very often anymore for after the whole COVID thing has died down because it's cash, not very much, and cash is king. And you know, somebody gets excluded because they're new in the area, they don't know the system, they're visiting relatives, they don't have a card. I mean, you can question the public, the bus riders, but it really depends on how you do it. You can try to, as MST often does, they try to get what the answers they want, like with the surf project, by the way it's presented or leaving out critical information. But you really should ask people the question, would you like to have this system, or would you like to have a system where people can use this system and cash so people have a choice? Would you prefer to have both options, or would you prefer to have the cash option eliminated? So I think you might want to, you're spending an awful lot of time on this issue while we have such serious transportation limitations and other issues out there. Your buses have been using cash for many, 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 many years, and now all of a sudden it's a huge problem. I know it makes, obviously it can really hold a bus up at a bus stop, everybody counting out their quarters and all of that. That's understandable. All right. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comment.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another hand up? Okay, our next comment.
Yes, my name is Lorna Moffett, and I take the bus, and I use cash. And I think you could have a cash box with a lock on it so that, people could just put their money in that. And then you don't have to worry about a system breaking down. We have to be very careful now with AI. I mean, we have been warned. Every single technology that comes on, whether it's plastics or pesticides, is a bad, unhealthy technology. And we use it anyway. And now AI is threatening to destroy us, and we're still hurtling along, your agency, without any question about, wait a minute, what if you can't use, what if there's a huge catastrophe like a fire and no one can use their ATM card or their credit card because the whole system has broken down? at least you still have cash and you can still get from A to B. So I think it's really important for you to continue with cash because cash is king and we need to have a way to pay our way without being stuck because of technology. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. I can't, let's see.
That's all. I just know that.
With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the directors for any last thoughts. And if not, I'm not seeing any hands. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item, and this is item 6E1, page 37. And this is board policy and performance items, and that segues as the last item into contactless fair payment transition plan.
Yes, so Michael Coleman was just up here. We have a report speaking a little bit to the where we're at with our contactless payment program, currently accepting Visa, MasterCard, and Discover, and American Express coming online.
Definitely first half, I'd like to say first
Okay,
quarter.
so within months, we'll have American Express and Diners Club.
Testing
And
Diners
all
part
of this
this
will
week.
be the first transit operator that anyone can think of that accepts all card schemes. So again, we're taking the lead in this contactless payment. I think we've already discussed some of the challenges that we have with continuing to collect cash on board the bus and what the future will hold, whether it's completely cashless or hybrid. Those, whether we move from a smart fare box to take a step backwards to be the way it used to be with what's called the dumb fare box, where you just throw your money in a box and you lock it up. Those are all decisions that will come before this board later as we develop a more detailed plan. I talked to you about the issues that we have with actually finding vendors to collect the cash for us at the end of the day. So that we're not forced to be in the old Wells Fargo days of having to haul large quantities of bags of coin around the county trying to get this cash off our buses. It's not safe for our employees to do that. Something that's your board will want to consider and staff will be bringing to your attention at a later meeting is to similar to our ability to use existing online resources to verify eligibility for discounts for seniors, veterans, Medicare card holders. We are looking at offering that same discount to state CalFresh card holders. That would be a new discount being offered. I did a brief look. There are, tens of thousands of CalFresh card holders in Monterey County who likely already overlap existing discounts that are for youth or seniors or persons with disabilities. So from an impact on our bottom line and our cash revenue, I don't believe adding a discount for CalFresh card holders will be too onerous for us to bear. So this is, I think a continuation of the last discussion. I don't know how much more you want to talk about it, but we do have, if you have specific thoughts on new discounts for contactless card holders, or anything else to say about this contactless system, please let us know. We're continuing to be a leader in the industry in this area. For whatever reason, we started it and we seem to be having good response. 10% is although it doesn't sound like much, at our phase in developing this, only a few years in, I've talked to much larger transit operators who've said that their adoption rate was even slower than ours. So 10% is not bad, given where we are. We just need to find some way to, if we replace the go-karts with mag straight cards with this type of technology, we'll jump from 10% to 60% relatively quickly.
Yeah.
So just,
Director LeVar.
just a couple quick ones then. One is, doesn't all Medicare and CalFresh people, aren't they all on cards now anyway?
Michael, you're working.
Okay, so, as Carl pointed out, we're really exploring this aggressively.
No, I just wanna know.
Yeah.
The state.
The state actually does have a card,
EBT card.
I know
EBT
that,
card,
okay,
right,
let me rephrase.
okay, sorry.
Currently, the state is already switched from providing checks
To a
to
card.
only cards.
Right,
That's all I wanted to know.
right. Now it's
So
whether our
secondly-
system will read those cards.
Secondly, then I would encourage to work with the state like the CalFresh program. Where they could use their EBT card for CalFresh. Come onto our system, go to the grocery store, but if it costs us $2, they get a $2 credit back. I just have a conversation on that, but. I just wanted clarification. I didn't think they were sending checks anymore because there is a huge portion of the population that's already used to that. So how do we get them used to it here?
And these are exactly the ideas we're exploring. As you said, we won't go into too much detail, but like so many other things we're doing in this space, there'll probably be steps or phases. The first step will simply be verifying identity. So that'll be very similar to how we're doing now for veterans and Medicare and the rest of that. The second step is to find a way to actually get that card into our ecosystem.
And the state of New York.
State of New York is already piloting this, which means I know technologically it can be done. For what it's worth, there's been some real engagement and conversation with Cal ITP, which we're working with closely on this project. Let's just say there is excitement about this whole idea. I have yet seen any resistance. It's just figuring out how we will do it.
And gentlemen,
It's just a comment on that, that card also has the option of cash. So it's food and cash will be wonderful to, if we can get something to do with that.
yeah, awesome.
Yes. Might be possible.
No, as I said, this one, Lisa, give credit where credit was due. Lisa was the one that threw this idea towards my way. I've been kind of running with this since. I'm very excited about possibilities with this. I think we can make it happen.
Director Bailey.
Thank you. My apologies for bringing all this stuff up earlier. This is what I meant to bring it up. But I would just point out that, on the first page where it says the advantages and disadvantages, the first 3 bullet items say allow MST customers, allow customers, provide customers. And the disadvantages, there's nothing about customers. Like the disadvantages are all about the problems that MST suffers by not going down this road, but there's nothing about going back to what I was saying earlier. There's nothing about what the disadvantages to customers are, and it may be, someone, Mike talked about the fare box is in a different spot, and it is in a different spot because I've seen people. So there's no notion on the disadvantage side. There's no notion that from a customer's perspective, and I think that's also borne out by in the second section of this report. There are things that we're going to do to try and boost the usage of electronic cards. But again, there's nothing related to customers here.
Right.
There's no exploration, so I think the perspective is a little bit skewed. Like we're approaching this from an operational perspective rather than a customer perspective. And that's what I say.
And the only thing I could add off the top of my head is continuing cash for customers doesn't give the customer the ability to do the fare capping that they can do today, or the traditional cards that we have today. You can only buy a monthly pass or a weekly pass with all the cash up front, whereas the contactless system allows you to pay as you go. So that's an advantage to the customer, or a disadvantage in the cash provides. And then from a safety perspective for the passenger, if you're working in a tip-based, cash-based job, you can be standing at a bus stop with cash in your pocket that makes you a target. And it's inconvenient in that way. Whereas at the end of shift, you can take your tips, transfer it to your card. That's now on a secure, more secure form of media. If the card gets stolen, you can quickly turn it off. So, but other than that, I hear you. I wrote the report. I will absolutely take ownership that I did not give it full.
Okay.
It's not a fully baked
Mike,
report.
I think it was Mike that also mentioned, getting the new cards into people's hands.
Yeah,
And unlike the New York City subway where you interact with a turnstile.
right.
When you go in, when you take your card, your phone and your pop card or whatever, you interact with the turnstile. Everybody that rides our bus is interacting with a person.
Right.
And so we have hundreds of people that are potential spots for trading one form of a card to another. So.
Thank you. Director Bishop.
Just one comment, I mean, Medicare, that's not a card yet.
No, it's not,
It's a
and-
paper card that people get because you don't get any money, you're paying money.
Right, you are correct. The Medicare system is actually works identical to how we're doing veteran registration and how we're doing registration for senior citizens. So there is a portal that's gonna be set up for this. One of the things that is going to definitely happen this year, and again, the hope is first half of this year, probably first quarter of this year, is that a piece we've been lacking is that right now that function is self-serve. So for a customer to be able to go through that process, register as a veteran, register as Medicare, and by the way, Medicare is live right now, they could register. Or register as a senior citizen, they basically have to go to a portal set up by Cal ITP, then they're basically moved to the correct agency at the federal government level, which does the verification, and then they get their discount when they use their card. We are going to add a function that will allow our customer service staff to be able to do this as well. So if somebody is truly feeling uncomfortable with that, eventually they're gonna be able to go to a customer service center. They will still have to bring proof, that they're eligible for those discounts, but a customer service person will then be able to take them through that process.
That's a one-time action.
Yes,
And then they're
right.
set for the rest of
Once
their
it's
life.
done, it's
15 years
done.
and- Yeah.
So
Unless you're gonna get younger.
Yeah. And seniors, Medicare, like, they can vote, unlike or health risk people might,
Right.
hopefully.
But again, a lot of this is moving fast. I actually saw a demo on, myself and customer service, Veronica saw a demo on the customer service portal last week. So they'll probably be ready to test it in roughly 2 to 3 weeks. So we're continuing constantly with these.
I'd like to be a guinea pig for that.
I will make sure you are.
And I'm gonna just go ahead and add a comment, so, and this is kind of piggyback off of Director Barron on the under disadvantages of the contact system. So will there be any, we heard that there may possibly be a fare box still, but any type of exemptions for emergency situations? I know that we have the diamond triangle on our windows for safe place, so somebody's in dire or trying to get away from somebody, they could get on the bus and they'll lock it down.
Absolutely. I mean, today, we accept cards and we accept cash and we accept people who ride for free under emergency situations, whether it's a safe place request for transportation or whether it's a mass evacuation of Pajaro or Carmel Valley or Big Sur. None of this is going to stop our ability to instruct the driver, all rides are free because of an emergency situation. That's always been our policy, and unless your board directs us otherwise to start charging people in an emergency, I wouldn't recommend it. But our policy is now during a declared emergency, we do not charge fares. Our desire is to move people out of harm's way and move first responders into the breach to help out. So that won't change as a result of this.
And that might have been a little silly, but just for the public and.
Yeah. No, that's why I was speaking to.
Okay, thank you,
I wasn't
sir.
speaking to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other director comments at this time before I go out to public comment? Not seeing any, we'll open this up to the public comment is open. If I could have someone be a set of eyes, because.
I see no raised hands online.
No hands, okay. A public comment is still open. And not seeing anyone, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back for the director, so for any last moment comments on this item. And if not, we will go ahead and move on to the next item. This is item 6B2 and zero emissions bus transition plan. This would be Norm on page 39.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. I'd like to direct your attention to page 39 of your board packet. My name is Norm Tooth, your Chief Operating Officer. So before you would have my report regarding MST's zero emission transition. Page 2, first paragraph, kind of explains the reason why we're going through this transition and the reasons why we're making an update. So California Air Resources Board, CARB, implemented the ICT, which is the Innovative Clean Transit Regulation that requires all California-based public transit agencies to transition their fleet of internal combustion engines over to zero emission technology. Beginning in 2026, this agency, or I'm sorry, let me back up. This agency, beginning in 2023, had to publish a report, a transition rollout plan. So we did that. Between 2023 and now, we had some changes within our the way that we do business. So we went through the Better Bus network redesign of how we deliver service within our jurisdiction, and that had led to a different way for us to do business. So we have different ways to provide service. Our vehicles they deliver a different set of mileage. And so a lot of things that happen there. So we have to go back and update that plan. So within that, there are within this report, I talk about various technology updates that I'll cover quickly. And then I'll go through some of the zero emission transit projects that we're going through right now. And then finally, I'll talk about the current emerging issues that we as an agency are facing and other agencies within California. So number one, let's talk about updates, zero emission technology updates. So as Director Barron pointed out, there are a lot of complexities when it comes to hydrogen fuel cell, hydrogen fueling, hydrogen infrastructure. Many of my colleagues in the Bay Area and also down in Southern California have made the transition to hydrogen fuel cell technology. And honestly, they're going through a rough time. So whether it's procuring a fuel, the cost that they had originally hoped for, getting fuel delivered, or actually dispersing and dispensing fuel. Those three sets of issues are very, very complex. I'm not an expert on it, but I'll note that we, as a group in operations, are participating in as many sessions, as many committee meetings that we can, so that we can get updated on hydrogen fuel cell, hydrogen fuel technology, and then we'll bring that information back. I've noted Director Barron's comment, and we'll make sure that we keep the board abreast about all of the situations that we can as we learn throughout the process. Battery electric buses continue to dominate the public transit industry, opposed to hydrogen fuel cells. So both technologies are actually electric buses. Hydrogen fuel cells are attached to an electric bus, and that's a constant thing that recharges the batteries on our bus. So think about a bus with battery electric technology, and imagine that you had some way of keeping that battery charged. That's what the fuel cell does. You put hydrogen into the storage tanks, and then the fuel cells continuously charge those batteries that are on board. So with that, you've got range comparisons. Battery electric buses, you charge it one time, you send the bus out, and it returns, hopefully. Hopefully, you get the fuel mileage that you are expecting. Hydrogen fuel cell buses, you put the hydrogen in it, and today they're getting well over 300 miles per fill. And then in addition to that, hydrogen fuel cell buses can be refilled in a matter of minutes. So anywhere between 6 to 12 minutes, they can fill those tanks. Whereas in a battery electric bus, you gotta bring it back to the yard, unless you've got stations throughout your jurisdiction that you can recharge, but you're looking anywhere between 2 and 8 hours in order to get some level of charge that'll give you, 100 or 200 miles more of range. So those are the two major differences. And then on top of that, I talked a little bit about the infrastructure. Very, very complicated, very, very complicated. The equipment alone for hydrogen fuel cell, there have been many vendors, manufacturers in the space, but it's been hard to get them to either deliver the equipment or to get the equipment working properly in the way that we, as transit industry professionals, hope, so that we can operate our buses the way that we need to. There is an organization called ARCHES, which is the Alliance for Renewable Clean Hydrogen Energy Systems. They won a big award from the federal government, and their plan is to create more than 10 clean hydrogen production sites. So we'll have production sites that produce hydrogen throughout the state of California. And then on top of that, they plan to build over 60 hydrogen fueling stations statewide. So that's public fueling stations. That's not specific to me. That's for somebody who has, a big truck that's traveling down the road, or if they have a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle where they need to get refilled. But all of that is meant to provide this industry and other industries the availability of hydrogen fuel that's produced and manufactured on a big level, so that we have production and that we have stock built up, and we have hydrogen fuel more readily available for us. We've made progress throughout the state, and I talked a little bit about this, and I won't get into too much detail, but we have we've experienced numerous issues as an industry with the production and the procurement of hydrogen fuel. I have some colleagues that are actually they're towing their buses from the Central Valley over into the Bay Area to get fuel. That's because the fuel is not available where they're at. So, until we get that kind of figured out, we're going to continue monitoring, and we're going to focus on battery electric as our first step forward to the transition. Some of the projects that we are involved with, MST, you guys know about the 13 Gillig battery electric buses that we purchased last year. Those purchase orders have been received, they've been executed. We have let's see here, late 2025, so November 10th, I believe, is the date that they'll enter the production facility. They'll go online. It's, I think, a 10-day build, and we hope to receive those buses in late 2025 this year or early 2026. That'll bolster our battery electric buses by 13. In addition to that, we have 9 charge point chargers that we purchased. We're storing those. Those 9 will be installed this year prior to November 1st. So we'd like to get those installed, operational, ready to go before those 13 battery electric buses come. And those 9 additional chargers will be installed between Salinas and Monterey. In addition to that, we have an ongoing project right now with Kimley Horn. They are designing and helping us with retrofitting this facility here in Monterey, getting it ready for hydrogen fuel cell buses, where we can maintain them in our facility. So there's a number of safety upgrades that they have to do, and they're leading the project there. So I'm working with them. Right now, they're at 30% design. Once they get to 90% design, then we'll go out to bid, and we'll start looking for a contractor to come in and take the designs and install and do whatever construction we need to get this facility ready. So that only allows us to work on hydrogen fuel cell buses. So we're not pursuing any fueling right now. We're not pursuing any other infrastructure right now. I think, the way that Carl kind of talked with me about and the executive teams, we want to see what other people are doing. The technology, although it's been out for a while, there's still a host of problems that have been happening, and we just don't think it's time for us to put ourselves in the ring. So we've got some time to transition, so we'll take that slowly. We'll make sure that we have all the information that we need, and we'll bring it back to this board to ensure your input on how we move forward. We're also designing a microgrid. Again, we're designing a microgrid here in Monterey for this facility. We've got some money for that. And it's being developed right now. The plans are being developed by Kimley Horn. They've had ongoing discussions with PG&E and then also with 3CE. And we expect to have a completed design sometime the middle of this year. And the intent of that is to get the design in hand. It's not going to build us the microgrid, but it'll give us the plans that we need so that we can go out and seek funding so that we can implement and install a microgrid here. As you know, Carl kind of alluded to that a little bit ago. We've been called on to transport people in emergency situations, and it's been almost every single year that we've had to respond, either to flooding, wildfires, whatever the case may be. So I've been here, this is my 8th year, and I think we've responded 5 years, five years out of the 8 years that I've been here. And we've been able to do that because we have diesel fuel. And if we're in a situation where we have blackouts, brownouts, whatever the case may be, if we don't have the infrastructure available that'll keep our buses charging, we're not going to be able to respond. And so that's a great concern for us. We believe that we'd like to, well, we have to be able to respond. So the microgrid is essential for us. And then we look to use that design on future builds, whether it's in Salinas or down in King City. I'll go down to current and emerging issues. We talked about range. We talked about hydrogen fuel, training and employee development, both battery electric buses and fuel cell technology requires that we work hand in hand with our HR department, our safety and risk department, and our OEMs to train them so that they're safe, so that our employees are safe. They know how to work on these buses. And honestly, the OEMs, they're not doing a very good job, in my opinion, on getting training out to their employees, to their customers. So, we're going to be working with them to try and get the training that we need. I also sit as the vice chair of the California Transit Training Consortium, and we specifically create training, maintenance-based training for all technologies. And so we're looking to get our hands into the battery electric bus realm of education, and also in fuel cell technology. Last thing I want to talk about is funding. So within the last 45 days, I've been working with our contractor, our consultant, to update our rollout plan. And they gave me, just for vehicles and equipment alone, we are we're approximating about 122 million just for vehicles and equipment alone. And that's mostly battery electric. We didn't go through the whole exercise of looking at design, engineering, acquiring land. That will come later on in the project, but just for vehicles and equipment alone, approximately $122 million. And that concludes my report, and I'll take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Norm. Dr. Barclays, any questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you, Norm, for this. As we move towards that goal of zero emission for the entire fleet, I imagine it's hard to kind of negotiate or figure out how much you want to lean on battery, how much you want to lean on hydrogen. I was curious, I didn't understand that the hydrogen is essentially on an electric bus, but fueling that. I was curious to know if our electric buses, let's say down the road, we decide that we need to go more hydrogen. Are we able to retrofit our current electric buses, or is that just like a whole different build? I'm just curious because we have such a long lead time for these buses.
Yeah, I think, there may be somebody out there that can do that. Currently, I don't know if that can happen. So, yeah.
Is the lead time just as long for a hydrogen fuel cell bus?
It's a little bit longer. Okay. Yeah, so right now it's 18 to 24 months for battery electric buses, and I think 24 to 36 months. So it's a little bit longer lead time. There's only 2 American bus manufacturers, heavy-duty bus manufacturers right now in the US, and one of them is actively manufacturing hydrogen fuel cell buses. The other one is not there yet. I think they're about 1.5 to 2 years away, something like that.
They've been 1.5 to 2 years away for the past 5 years.
Yeah, so right now there's one that manufactures fuel cell electric buses, and then there's 2 actively manufacturing battery electric buses. So because of that, it's long lead time.
Well, thanks so much for your involvement and knowledge base, and I look forward to hearing more about it.
Sure.
Director Lamont?
So question, when you're talking about the emergencies, the microgrid, do the regulations allow for an on-site like diesel generator to charge?
I don't know if the regulation allows for that here on site. We do have a diesel backup generator. But when we're applying for grants to, you know, to kind of to transition to zero emissions, we stay away from saying, hey, by the way, we'd like to, you know, include a diesel powered
No, I can
generator,
understand, I can
yeah.
understand that, but it also puts us in a predicament,
Yeah,
right?
I don't think it excludes us from doing that.
Okay.
In fact, I had conversations with one of the I guess electricity providers, and that was their response to me. Right, well, why don't you just go get a diesel?
And as
Or,
long-
or biofuel like we
Yeah.
use now. I
Or
mean,
biofuel.
I've been trying to discourage the staff from even using the word diesel because we don't use diesel.
Yeah,
We
it's
use 100% biofuel.
Yeah.
And so when we think diesel, I ask myself, pause, say biofuel, but let's look at a biofuel
There are.
generator.
Yeah.
That's actually a great idea.
There's biofuel, there's a hydrogen fuel cell, you know, generator, but those are still years away.
Well, and I like the microgrid style, but you still have to have the ultimate backup just in case this. I know Carl's heard this before, many of the board members. Look, for me, the most important aspect of the public transit system is the ability during emergencies to move people out of harm's way. Transportation for jobs and all that stuff, to me is just like icing on the cake. It's a benefit. And it is important that we maintain that infrastructure for those emergency situations. And I don't want to see us lose that ability or become hamstrung in our ability to perform that. I almost want to say mandated function of public transit. So that's it.
You don't have to say almost.
Okay.
Any other directors at this time, comments or questions? I'll throw one in there. Do we have room here to add these type of infrastructures?
That's a great question. The battery electric, we're pushing our capacity now for battery electric. And I've been talking at this location, as part of the hydrogen future. We have the old compressed air refueling station that the city of Monterey and MST jointly operated for numerous years. We share a property line. That property is still available, and I've been talking with the city manager about someday making that a hydrogen fueling location that could be open both to the public if hydrogen fuel cars become a thing. That's been hard to get going commercially, but at least for MST. So we have ability there. We have facilities in South County, the ability, we certainly have space there for the infrastructure. And we have $1 million grant in the Senate version of the next appropriation bill. Should something cut loose and, they're talking about March timeframe. Depending on whether they take on the House or the Senate version of the bill, we would prefer the Senate version because there's $1 million for MST to outfit South County with the same microgrid hydrogen retrofit there. And then as we design a new Salinas operations and maintenance building, there's absolutely no room in Salinas. That site is over capacity for what we operate today. So we are looking at a new site, and there'll be more, you'll hear more about that later in the year. The site that we're looking at has design plans, space for future hydrogen as well as electric. So we're trying to build for we're not going to be 100% one or the other. I think it's going to end up being a mixed fleet of hydrogen and battery electric. For the near term, battery electric will be the bridge to hydrogen. And technology just has to come along a little bit more, and we're more than willing to let our peers take their lumps on learning how this is gonna work. Because there have been some significant lumps that have been taken.
Yes, right.
With that, thank you, Carl. And with that, I'll go ahead and open this up to public comment is open. If you could state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I see no one on the public.
Okay, well, with that, we'll close public comment and, we've had some good discussion on this item, which, will bring us into something.
This will feed our action plan and strategic plan for the coming year, and so we're taking notes, and this will all come back in some fashion.
Yeah, then we'll make sure we provide regular updates to this board as pointed out by Director.
And biofuel generator.
Biofuel.
Thank
Not the
you.
D word.
And
Not the D word.
Norm, don't go away because,
Next, yeah.
we're gonna, go ahead and go to, 6B number 3, and this is future, contracted transportation services, page 43 of your agenda.
That's right. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. As the Chair stated, this is on your page 43 of your board packet. And for discussion, I just wanted to bring some things out to you, some things to consider in the future. I'm not recommending that you take action on any of this. This is just fodder for you to think about as we go through the next couple of years, many years. I don't know how many years, but I would like to point out to you that there are some things that we can do in-house that you should consider. But on top of that, I'm not trying to sway you to go either way. So for 35 years, MST has contracted out a portion of its service to private contractors. In 2003, your board adopted a policy that authorizes us to contract services. Today, approximately 40% of our business is contracted out to MV Transportation. They take care of our on-calls, they do some of our fixed route services, and then they take care of all of the paratransit ADA operations. So like I said, about 40% of our business is contracted out. By bringing some or all of these services directly under our oversight and management, directly operated, there are some things that I want to point out. So number one is improved service quality and accountability. So nothing against our consultants and our contractors, but I believe when we directly operate and directly manage things, we can operate services directly that allows us to have complete control over service quality, responsiveness, customer service, and safety. Secondarily, stronger workforce stability and development. By employing frontline employees directly, it gives me an opportunity to work with our staff in the ELT and then also our frontline staff to have a better, I guess, a better experience when it comes to real-time oversight and making sure that we foster employee morale, loyalty, and then also a commitment to ensuring that we consistently improve our performance as we deliver the service. This also gives us an opportunity to enhance our safety and operational, our ability to oversee that directly. Managing transit operations, again, I talked about this, ensures that we have strict adherence to the policies and the procedures that we create as MST. Right now, we have to rely on, a third party to deliver service the way that we want to do it, and then we hold them accountable to that. But cutting out the middleman gives me the ability to directly operate that stuff. And then lastly, it better aligns with organizational goals and community values. So direct operation gives me all of that ability, direct oversight to ensure safety, a better customer experience, and then also maintenance of our vehicles. I did want to point out though, I should have included this as a bullet point. Estimated costs for directly operating are going to be much greater than they are today. And so those are, that's probably one of the biggest things that you as the board at some point maybe has to look at is, how much is this service going to cost MST to directly operate, and whether or not we can still deliver the same number of revenue hours as we are today if we are paying more for what we're operating. So I'll leave it at that, and then I'll just ask Carl if you have anything else.
Yeah, I just say that over the time, I'm gonna say over the past 20 years or so, we've been requiring less and less of our contractors and doing more and more. MST has taken over the dispatching function of the contractor provided minibus fixed route services. MST has taken over the fuel procurement. MST provides the garage and pays for the garage facilities for which they operate out of. And that's been sometimes at the request of the contractor. Sometimes we found that it's been more cost effective for us to do it that way rather than going through the contractor and paying, various levels of markup through the contractor. However, that being said, what Norm said is very true. None of our contractors, about 100 or so, their health and benefits packages are not a CalPERS health and benefit package. They are provided a package through a private organization. So we do realize a benefit because that is a lower cost. And I think that's what the overall discussion will be from this board. It comes down to span and breadth of service versus cost. Bringing services in-house, especially with the CalPERS and health benefits, will cost more money. I don't believe we have it all penciled out yet. That's something that I think if your board is interested in this, taking this further, you could say direct staff to come back with some fiscal analysis of this to determine how much more really is it, and then determine is the perceived improvements in quality that Norm thinks that he can provide through direct operation, is that worth it? And then where would the money come from? Would we seek new sources, or would we change some of our capital projects? How might we get there? So it's not a small lift. It's not something I want to take on lightly. I want to have your board give us some direction that this is something that you want us to actually look into. This isn't to say, we still get 90% of our customers think MST services are good or excellent, and our customers don't know what pieces are contracted and what's not. They just see MST on the side of the bus, right? I don't know that they can accurately tell you if they know their bus is operated by MV or not, because there's really nothing that indicates MV on the side of the bus. So I know we get our complaints through the system. There are certain customers in the healthcare field that really, their customers are very fragile and very vulnerable. And when we don't show up on time, it can create real problems for them. And oftentimes that's left to MV, those types of trips. So they get an inordinate amount of the complaints as a result of that. So I'm not saying from a performance side piece that there's something critically wrong, but I think it's important for us to ask the question. That's why this item is on your agenda today, because as staff, we want to know, are you interested in looking at us, taking a look at future budgets to look at, taking on more of this contracted out service, leave it alone, take over the whole thing. Those are kind of our options.
Thank you, Pearl. With that, let's go to directors. We'll go to Director Alejo, the Director LaBar, and then Director Smith.
Yeah, Carl, both of you, thank you for bringing this hot topic up. Obviously, my initial inclinations on this subject matter would be to work on fixing some of the issues that come up, and Carl knows that I've been in the mix, maybe Tony, because some of our providers in Salinas that, as you're saying, that take care of our elderly residents, sometimes they're left, the social workers or the staff are left with the clients are still there, nobody picked them up, or there was a delay. Sometimes it's a communications problem. But how long have we contracted with MB now?
Well, we
20
we
years?
go out to bid, every 5 years or so.
But how many decades has it been?
Oh, it's been 20 years.
Right.
We've been with MV, and
So
we
that's-
we had other people, but MV has had the contract for 20 years through competitive process.
So that's one. Number two, is there other options at this time in to fix the it seems like overall, it just on some of these cases, I think out of all the thousands of rides, there's a percentage. And is it worth just trying to fix those issues versus trying to bring in the complete workforce under our umbrella
Right.
rather than the MV? And obviously, I don't know what the numbers look like, but I would assume the costs are significant. At the county, we have 5,000 plus employees. First, healthcare costs are skyrocketing, like 10% each year. And when you got over 5,000, it's millions of dollars. I don't know how many employees do this work under MV. The other big piece is the political piece, right? Because all these employees are Teamsters, former Teamsters 890. They've come here before when there's been issues in the past. They recently merged with to a bigger local. They're under the umbrella of Teamsters 856 out of Union City. But I just assume if this board would go down that route, expect that to be part of the process. It'd be a labor issue, there'd be tension because all those employees, their lives would be disrupted. And they would, of course, have to apply, come in here, but we'd have to go through all that. And it would be a big, I think, political fight with Teamsters 856 if we were to go down this route as well. So I'm just flagging that issue because we have to do with the political side and the employee disruption side, significant cost versus is it easier or is it a better use of resources focusing on improving quality of services under MV or going through this other process that seems to have a lot of financial and political barriers.
Right. And just to be, that's all great questions, and I don't think I have any answers for you today. It's a matter of what's it worth, what's the, perceived quality improvement versus the additional cost. The other option that you need to be aware of is you'll recall, I'm not sure how many months ago it was, but MV came to MST requesting a significant increase in their contract. And your board, after having some discussion, authorized staff to go out to bid to make MV justify that cost increase against marketplace to see were they just coming in and saying we need X. And MST has gone out to their competitors and say, okay, what would you charge? So that's going to be coming back to your board soon as well. So the other option is continue contracting out services to the private sector, realizing those savings, but maybe with a different organization that would come in and have to, when these things happen, they have to recognize unions and work with unions and the workforce. I wouldn't say could be undisrupted, but it's not unusual for new contractors to come in and have to come in with a new management scheme for the local workers. So that's something that's going to be coming to your board here shortly, the results of that process. And your board will need to determine, do we continue with MV or do we accept a lower bid from another vendor? Even before we say, or maybe at that time you say, what would MV, option B, and option C would be MV or MST directly operated, and we provide you with that financial analysis of all three, and you make a decision, tell us how you want to go.
And Norm, do you have any idea what there's early preliminary numbers, what the added cost would be to?
I don't.
You don't, okay.
We're in the process right now, and we'll come to you in a session that's appropriately agendized to give you the.
Yeah, and I just want to make one more comment on healthcare because it's been a big issue now for the school districts, for other agencies, even the union health plans like Unite Here, they're all having challenge. That's why this discussion about the high cost of healthcare, especially with 3 of our hospitals being in the highest brackets, the most expensive brackets. On the top 10, 3 out of the top 10 are the 3 hospitals in our county that are bringing significant costs to all these employers, to these plans, and that are making it much more difficult. So that's in the context of all the cost of bringing more employees under us that we would then have to be dealing with down the road.
So the purpose on this agenda is just to get some feel for, again, just forget about it, staff, come back with some analysis of bringing it in-house, come back with analysis of bringing in-house and alternative contractors. That's what we're looking for. And we are going to come back to you regardless because we've gone out to bid with the results of that bid process, and we'll have a decision to make here in the coming months on that. At that time, we're wondering, do you want us to do the analysis additionally of, well, what would it cost to bring some or all of it in-house? What might make sense for us to bring in to directly operate? So your thoughts would be appreciated at this time.
Yeah, just on that, I would say it's worth at least having more information that we don't have today.
Right.
And that to better make a more informed opinion. I'm waiting forward.
I would agree with that, wholeheartedly. The more information you have going forward, to make a good decision for the future, benefits everybody.
Yeah, and so I'm very similar on that too, where I know we had the other item, we'll have the opportunity for discussion on that portion of where do we go, right, bid side of it. My only concern is where are we at on staff's work product? I mean, will this add an additional amount that would be considered significant because we do have this CERT project going to be rolling through. We have all of our normal operations. So I'm just more concerned on, is it this the right time because of staff workload?
I think, the ones who would be most impacted by this, besides Norm's group, would be our finance people, who would be crunching the numbers and looking at, the additional cost per annuitant, per healthcare, and then, some analysis from the HR group as well. So that group isn't necessarily working directly on SURF within the next 6 months. That's still falling firmly under Lisa right now, still can't shake this as much as she tries. We're gotta get under contract and break ground before this gets off of her table. So I think we have time now, between now and the next 6 months, to get you some of this information to be able to have a further discussion and give us some direction on how you'd like to go.
And then last comment would be if, and this is probably the hard part, but if there is a way to ballpark those costs versus, let's say there was additional costs bringing in-house versus the complaints and what it meant to that person, right? Because we are talking more specifically about elderly individuals that have got stranded either before an appointment or after appointment.
Right.
And that is significant.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some other things that we have to work through as well. We have space constraints, to suddenly absorb. If we were to take over the entire operation tomorrow and have to have 100 people and 100 buses, that would pose some logistical issues for us. So it's not a straightforward decision. There's gonna have to be some more analysis done to make certain that this is something we both want to do and are able to do. Sometimes wanting it isn't the same as being able to do it, right? So we gotta make sure we can pull it off. That's what we end up wanting. I think, Mr. Cabrera.
Yeah, I think we definitely need those analysis so we can know where to move and how to move. I mean, it's better to have it and not need it, and need it and not have it. Because with the analysis and everything, workload and everything that it has that involves, it will give us a better look into what we want to do. If we don't have it, we're gonna still need that information every time that issue comes back. I mean, in my cases, go ahead with the analysis. So we can have any information.
Yeah, Norm, thank you. I was gonna ask that question about capacity to take on the analysis, but I think Carlos answered that. Your estimate is maybe a 6-month timeframe where we have at least a partial view of numbers. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I don't see our finance person Andrea here, so to dispute it, so she's not here. No job's too difficult for the guy who doesn't have to do it.
Yeah.
I'll speak that.
Yes, so,
If we'll go back with that in mind, and if for some reason my staff is unable to do it in that timeframe, I will get back with you and let you know.
Yeah, so the other analysis of this choice is that, yes, I agree that you always want to have as much information as you can so that you can make that decision in the future. Because we will be faced with a decision about continuing a contract with MV or looking at another source to provide that service. It's essentially not a service that we can ever get rid of. It's a service that we own. It's just how we implement the operations of that service. And that's where the complication comes in with taking on 100 employees into our workforce and the labor conditions, the load, pricing, all of that stuff. But I think that my focus would be in that analysis needs to include that, yes, it would be nice to do that, but the impact on our fiscal picture as we are also still with a deficit that we need to look at moving forward to 26, to 27, 28. How do we deal with that deficit? And if we're impacting that deficit greater by making a choice of saying, yes, move forward, make the agency larger, then we need to have answers to that. How do we counter that with what's our new revenue? So that needs to be part of the analysis. I'm in favor of having the analysis so that we can have the complete picture for future decisions for the board. But I want to also not exclude the other pieces of the analysis to say, what's the overall impact to the budget? What's our future revenue? And are we in a look of now is the time to change the service level that we have for MB or for the services they provide? The other part of this is, do we do less of that service? And are there opportunities to do it in a different way that would possibly give us an opportunity to have less employees coming to the agency? So the analysis needs to include the service levels as well. And that may not be available in 6 months. And it doesn't mean that it needs to be done in 6 months.
No.
I think it needs to be timed with when are we making the decision about awarding a future contract to an outside agency. That's my views.
Thank you, Director Smith. We'll go over to Director Barrera and then we'll come back over to Director.
Well, it sounds beautiful. We all get along here. That's great. Mr. Tuwicki, at the beginning of your report, you had mentioned you don't want to sway the board one way or the other. But in reading your bullet points,
Yeah.
I mean, why would I want a more improved service quality and accountability?
Understood. Yeah, and I apologize.
No, please don't apologize, because you as the professional and the person that works, you and your team work on a day-to-day, you really know what's going on. And I applaud you for this, sincerely, I have a deep respect for you, but I like this report. Yeah, we can sit here as, we are in a political arena, so there's gonna be issues that we deal with that hopefully will come to a consensus. And it sounds like we are. My question is, I know we're dealing with individuals, but if this board decides on making the commitment to say, let's bring more in-house, are the MV employees, are they offered an opportunity even now? So, as you're needing drivers, are they offered the opportunity to join the MST?
Yeah, so now we actively recruit to everybody, everywhere. And we've got a number of operators that we've through MV. We've got somebody who just started here that's working in our communication center. So we're teaching them the MST way on how to do things the way that we expect. Not to say that they're doing anything wrong, but it's just.
And sometimes MV hires our employees.
This is true, yeah.
Not as often, but it has happened.
Yeah, and you know what, and as we tread lightly on this issue, critical, because we are dealing with people's lives. The ultimate individual is the writer, the one that's the service. If they're having difficulty, we need to address that.
Yeah.
And it might be legitimate reasons why they're not being picked up at a certain time or whatever. You know, since I've been here, hopefully I'll receive one of my cubic zirconia pens one of these days.
Number 4.
Hey, thank you.
You got this one already.
That's my fan president right there. It's rare that we see union representation here addressing this board and MB representation. I'm always asking, I've talked to the Teamsters, hey, how come you guys don't ever come out here? Why is that?
We have some MD folks here.
We do, we have some MD folks here.
Yeah, we do, but
We do.
it's usually silent, you know, you really don't hear much.
Yeah, you know, I'll just speak on my experience.
Please.
When the union shows up, there's usually a problem.
So when they're not showing up, that's good.
So are they invited to bagels and coffee?
I don't know about that, but yeah, I mean, and that was my experience, right? When a union consistently shows up at a meeting, it's not usually not to say, hey, we love you guys. It's usually to say, hey, you guys are doing something wrong. And I just liken that back to the relationship that we have with our union and also the work that MB is doing with their union.
You know, and I appreciate that, but a lot of times, I'm a local politician. Some people like me, some people don't, so I'm sorry about that. But usually I ask unions, let's build a relationship. So when we get to the latter part of the discussion, which is labor, at least we know each other and we can work better with.
Yeah.
Does MST?
We do, absolutely, yeah, through Kelly's leadership, she has ongoing communication with them.
But we don't have a relationship with MVs union.
No.
We're not allowed to do that.
No.
That's a violation of
We can't
labor
interfere
law.
with their.
Even Mr. Alejo can help us on that.
Yeah, no, but even them, Crescencio Diaz obviously passed away. He was the local president based out of Salinas. And they totally restructured their leadership. Leadership is out of their Bay Area office. And they got like, so they got a committee like for the Monterey Bay region, but the dynamics of where the leadership rests has changed.
Okay.
From its former structure. I wonder when actually 890, the main office was in Salinas.
Yeah, well, just one last thought, Mr. Tui, thank you for your work and looking forward to see what the outcome is about the.
You too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Director Bishop.
Thank you. I had similar questions about the drivers, will they be offered to move to MST or MST? And I did read that MV now is fully staffed.
They are.
Yeah, see, I read my report.
They're fully staffed, right? But fully staffed, both in our world and MV's world, I mean, today I'm fully staffed, tomorrow I might be.
Yes.
Yeah, so they kind of ebbs and flows, but yeah, they are a lot closer and they're doing it back.
Yeah, no, I was glad to read that, because that might help with their service level.
Sure.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and move this to public. So public comment is open. And not seeing anyone online or in the room, we'll close public comment. And so what I'm hearing today, I think staff heard, is that we're looking for more information.
More information to compare both existing MV and proposed MV costs against the outcome of our competitive bid, and also to attempt to compare some models of MST taking over some or all of the service and what those service levels would be and what the additional costs would be, and if any new revenues, what the impact would be on the budget, and potential new sources of any new sources of income that would be required, new sources of revenue that would be required due to any of these changes. So I think that's the direction that we.
Or keeping status quo.
Or keeping the
fixing
status quo.
the service delivery problems.
Correct.
Thank you, Norm.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, 64, MST land utilization discussion, Pearl, and page 45.
Yeah, we, based on some direction from your board, several months ago, about a request from a local jurisdiction to, acquire a small piece of surplus property from MST. That was, allocated to us during the closure of Fort Ord. Your board asked us to do staff to do a land use utilization study, of which you have an executive summary provided in your board packet. Lisa Reinheimer led the efforts, and she's available to answer any questions that you might have about that study, but it does identify perhaps some order of the summary does, I think, identify for us what some order of priorities would be as far as what parcels might be the easiest and the lowest hanging fruit, which would be the Marina Transit Exchange and the small parcel in Seaside as well. There are other parcels that are more difficult due to the condition as far as there being oak habitat woodlands. Might not be appropriate for near-term development, might be more appropriate for being used as a bank against future mitigation efforts. And that sort of thing. So we'd be happy to answer more questions, although we just want to be clear, we don't want to talk about land values or potential sales or things like that in open session. Really, this is just giving you a summary of where we're at today with the land utilization study, because it is something your board asked us to bring back to you. If you want us to agendize it further, we can also do that too. Michael, you're giving me a look of concern, okay? What did I say? Okay, that's better. All right. The eyebrows were.
So, directors, and we'll go with Director Smith and then to Director Fisher.
Yeah, after reading the preliminary considerations, it does seem that the board should have further conversations. And I think that, I would recommend that we move ahead to schedule appropriate closed door sessions so that we can have considerations over property for, and my intent would be to identify properties that we would appropriately be able to liquidate. So I'd like to trigger a closed door session to be able to get further into the presentation.
Yeah, and there are some that are, as you can read, some are easier than others. Some are completely restricted to be used for a certain purpose only. And some are more easily to liquidate, maybe not be deed restricted, but maybe more difficult because of what's there. Either property or lead paints and asbestos and the remnants of the army, or the opposite. It's all undisturbed habitat. Either way, those are difficult, more or less difficult to liquidate. So we can have further discussion about that for sure.
Thank you, Director Fisher.
Yeah, this, of course, about Marina, the two parcels in Marina. Are you in touch with staff, the city staff? But
yes,
either one or both?
Yes.
Okay, because of course, one, as you know, it's public information, is one of the potential locations for the new civic center in Marina.
Right.
The one at the Transit Exchange, and the other one was just discussed last Thursday. The Marina is updating the general plan. So I didn't know MST has.
Are you familiar with that? Okay, we haven't, I don't think we're as familiar with that aspect of it. We have had discussions, if this is the IMGIN and IMGIN.
Yeah, the IMGIN, yes.
We've had on and off discussions with the city for years over that. Lisa, anything new?
Yeah, for all of the areas, we had conversations with the cities.
That's true.
So
Yes.
With Salinas, with Marina, of course. When we talked about the IMGIN and IMGIN site, I don't recall that coming up within the context of the general plan. It is one of the former Fort Ord sites with those restrictions on them. So what it can be used for is fairly limited.
Yeah, so this, it was just mentioned, so this is MST owned property.
Yes.
Any of the directors?
Thank you.
Okay. So Todd from TMC's just mentioning that it has a lot of San Gilead on it. So that's always lovely.
Thanks, Todd.
Always
very good things.
If there's no other comments from directors, I'll open it up to the public. Public comment is open.
And there is one hand raised online.
Okay, and if we could recognize the public speaker by identifying, state your name, and you have 3 minutes for your comment.
Can we unmute 2837?
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you now. Hello, 2837, you're muted again. Could you please unmute? There you are.
Thank you. This is Brian Rosen again. You know, somebody sent me a rail committee memo from TAMC. Somebody, I don't think your management likes, but I won't say who, but it detailed how both MST and TAMC own land near the proposed 5th Street station that, you know, in Fort Ord, where they want to, you know, put the surf line through. And because state law allows almost unlimited density when you're by a major transit line, all the zoning and so forth gets thrown out the window. It could be very, very lucrative for MST and TAMC if they sell this land. It would appear, you know, I don't have a great deal of knowledge about this, so set me straight, if you will. But it seems to me this could be a real huge incentive for both MST and TAMC to pursue this project, and it seems it is a clear conflict of interest, because this land is going to be worth a lot of money for a lot of high density development. And I just question whether, even, you know, given the fact of this huge conflict of interest, MST should even be the lead agency on this surf project. So what's going on with this piece of land? What's it going to be used for, the land that MST plans on selling? Is it going to be used for high density development, or what? How much profit is going to be made? How much is profit going to be increased by being near this major transit line? And so that's my comment and my questions. And thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen.
And Madam Chair, there is another hand raised, number ending in 1705.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, if you're gonna, this is Lorna Moffett, and if you are going to be selling that land, can you put restrictions on it so that there isn't massive building? Or are you just going to allow as much, whatever use they want for it, you're going to allow? And is that even legal to do? I think these are questions that you have to ask. Why did TAMC first have that land? I mean, MST, and I understand that both MST and TAMC own land there. So, you know, what is that going to be for, and what can it be for? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And
I just wanted to be clear that this excess property report has nothing to do, none of the properties that we're looking at are at the 5th Street station as part of the SURF project. We're looking at other properties that are not there.
thank you, Lisa. Is there anyone else on Zoom?
No other hands are raised.
Okay. With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back for director discussion. I believe it looks like the board, or some comments that I'm hearing, is to bring this item back into closed session to begin
Just
conversations.
Yeah, to get further direction from the board, further questions and provide further clarity. This is we're taking the very first step of developing plan. That was to just take an inventory of the property, where they are and what some of the restrictions are. We'll be coming back to your board. It's going to be a series of meetings over many, many months, I'm going to assume, to actually develop a coherent plan. As far as something, so I think it's better to have a plan than not to have one, for sure. So there's actually something pithier there out there that I'm missing, but anyway, so that's the plan. We'll come back to your board for further discussion. So, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Moving on to the next item, 6B5, this is on page 53. This is the MSD board code of conduct policy discussion.
Yes, yeah, thank you. In discussions with peers and some of your workshops that your board has attended through APTA and CTA, the concept of board code of conduct policies have come up, and it's not something that this board has. That could place us at some risk. And so based on feedback that I received from a number of board members who attended the APTA San Jose board member session, as well as the more recent CTA annual conference in San Jose, and then some outreach that I did through our various trade associations. I was provided copies of Ann Arbor, Michigan's board governance policy, as well as San Mateo Transit County's board governance policy, through the work of an ad hoc committee of your board consisting of the chair, the immediate past chair, and the vice chair, and general counsel. We took the elements of all those various training sessions and the Ann Arbor's and San Mateo Samtrans policies, and we came up with a draft document for your review today that we'd like to get comment on, that we would then bring back in open session at a future meeting. Staff recommends that your board, as does your ad hoc committee, recommends that your board do adopt a code of conduct policy. And so this is our first, well, it's not our first, this is our first draft that your board has seen. There have been several drafts that we've taken us to this point. So here's where we stand, and we'd be happy to take any comments at this point and bring it back to a future board for consideration. So that's where we stand.
Thank you, Carl. So at this time, directors, are there, would you like to add any input or comments? And I see Director Labar would like to base knowledge.
Yeah, the first will be a question is more explain what the liability could be, the legal liability of not having one in place.
Okay, I'm not certain I can speak to the legal liability. I can speak to the staff consideration, and just from experiment or experience that you see out there. If a board member is acting in a way and there's no existing policy, it makes it difficult for it can affect the credibility of the board. Okay. And it can then make it difficulty for staff to carry out initiatives if there's the credibility of the board is brought into question without having some statement of, hey, this is the commitment that the board makes and this is what they're held to. The second piece of that then is it's got to be more than just a document that you say that you have. Then we have to then show that if there's an experience that we're concerned, some of the issues or prohibitions of behavior that are outlined in this code of conduct, that we then take some action to do that. I think, council has brought up in the meetings, there's some of these, if not all of these behaviors might be covered under Brown Act or AB 1234 or other state ethics, and we tried to make certain that we weren't in conflict with that or unnecessarily duplicative. But I think we want to have a statement that we own as our own district, independent of other districts and organizations, that we say this is important for our board to maintain its credibility in all that it does. So
Okay,
that's.
All right, because I was concerned if there was also a legal aspect for it.
We're not legally required to have this.
No, I don't think so, so I'm fine on that. In general, many of these things, no problem, you absolutely stand by the board decision, codifying that into the code. I do have problems with a couple of these items, for example, and it might be easier to send these more offline, even through the chair to you specifically, but like, when serving on other boards, members remain accountable to the MST board for their action and statements regarding transit-related issues. Quite honestly, it's too vague. It could be interpreted in many aspects, but it also could be interpreted as limiting your ability to serve on another board. And so that seems confining.
Sure.
And I think our board operates at a very high level, but
We certainly don't want to limit anyone's speech in any capacity. I know this was language that yours isn't the first comment to come up around this. So Michael, any thoughts on this at this point, or do you want to come back?
We can certainly come back, we've had back and forth on this, these type of things as well, so we'll take comments and.
So we want to ensure that we're not unreasonably limiting any speech that you have, just because we certainly absolutely don't want you to stop being on other boards. Frankly, that's to our advantage to have you on as many boards as possible, because it's how these larger projects like we just celebrated today happen, by having crossover on boards. So
and I don't look at who the current players are, I look how this affects future people when we're gone.
Yeah, we don't want to have unintended consequences.
I'm fine just providing some more input.
Okay. I think your approach was best if you have specific concerns, go through the chair, because this is actually being led. This is a board policy, not a staff policy, so this one falls squarely with Mary Ann, and I'll support any way she needs.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Mike on that comment, just because it did come up in a past conversation where we serve on two different interests. Sometimes they collide, sometimes they, depending on the person, you think that they're complementary, but some of our colleagues might not. I don't want it to be used as a tool down the road that, our policy says this, and in my opinion, you violate only because there was a difference of opinion on a policy decision. The only other thing I would add here, Carl, and to our chair, was just on behavior at conferences. I'm now the second vice president of the California State Association of Counties, and we've actually had to ban county supervisors. This is a public case, so I'm not saying nothing new, but where there's discipline for bad behavior at the conference. So it was just one area that we don't think of. And I like these policies because they're meant to prevent and encourage good behavior, prevent bad behavior, or at least give guidance to current and new members that might join the board. But that was just one area of that.
So if it's a conference being paid for by the district.
Yeah, just to make sure that
they have to ensure their behavior.
Because they're representing us there, right?
Yeah.
It's on MST's dime to conduct yourself in good behavior at those conferences as well.
Don't hit anybody.
Director Barron.
Thank you. I think the matter of conflicts of interest, between members that serve on two boards is real. And while I wouldn't want to restrict board members from serving on two boards, I think if we have situations in which there is a conflict, that both boards would benefit by having the board member recuse themselves from one or the other conversations. And I don't know how that would work, but I think that's an alternate. I think that is a sort of halfway point. It's an alternative to closing our eyes preventing the situation, preventing on an individual basis the situations from arising as they come up.
But that's not a conflict of interest. Conflict of interest under state law is when you have a personal interest.
I'm just saying.
So you can't create something just because you disagree and call it a conflict of interest. You have to follow what state law defines as a conflict of interest. Where an elected official or appointed official would then be in a position to have to recuse him or herself.
I've heard what you have to say, Jeff, and Michael and I and the chair will take Mike's comments when they come into the chair and any other comments that come into the chair on this. We'll incorporate that, and thankfully I got Mike or Jeff on record, so I can just play the tape back and hear exactly what he's saying. The rest of it I'm gonna have to interpret.
He's on record.
Director Ferrera, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, being that this is a director, not staff issue, is this being brought because we're following the state process, or is this brought to this board because we're dealing with a specific issue or issues?
It's considered a best practice within, board governance to have a policy like this. So your board has an objective to staff to keep you up to speed on best practices. So we feel that this is a way of meeting that objective for your board, is to, as a best practice, develop this policy.
Okay. So your report does say it is unacceptable to make derogatory comments about other members, their opinions and actions. Instead of being very general, I'd like to know, maybe when I make a comment, it's not derogatory, but who makes the decision whether I'm out of line?
I think ultimately, if it's something that rises to a level of a complaint from a board member against another board member, it would, according to the policy, if I recall it, it would come to the board chair. The board chair would then, through a process, determine whether it was deemed derogatory or not. Is that fairly correct? Am I remembering this?
That is correct.
Okay.
It is the prerogative of the chair. And then it's kind of has a built-in warn first, and then repeated offenders would then possibly have sanctions.
So so at some point it becomes, again, it's a board policy. It would ultimately go to the board, board chair for some decision or appointment of a committee to decide if they don't feel, the chair in this policy has pretty broad discretion on whether to dismiss, uphold, investigate further for further action, investigate further to dismiss or uphold. So that's how we see it happening. I think it just has to be more than I didn't like the way you looked at me.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is subjective then, the word derogatory, what's derogatory to one person?
Yeah.
Is not necessarily to the rest of the group.
Right, so I think there's a certain, for acceptable, there's a group standard. I think you all know each other well enough, and what's common and acceptable here is common and acceptable here.
So that portion could easily be just taken out of the draft.
Yeah, so Mr. Legal Counsel, because I've gone through issues like this where it's,
That's not what I meant.
You lived this experience.
Yeah. Yes, and there's never easy answers, but who determines, let's just suppose the Madam Chair decides, this is pretty serious derogatory comment. So does it come to this board for a vote, or how does that work?
So I direct you to page 56 of that has it in the policy. So the process would be that members should point out a member should point out to the offending member any perceived infraction of these rules as they occur. If the offense continues, then the matter should be referred to the chair in private, where then it could be held discussion there. And then it's the responsibility of the chair to take to initiate an action if a member's behavior warrants sanctions. If it's the chair that's offending, then the responsibility would be the vice chair. If then there is no action taken, then it could become brought to the full board for action in open session. So that's the process that is outlined. That's a common process for a code of conduct for city councils or boards and commissions. It's a way to try to, it's a rules of decorum is what we're talking about here. It's not laws, it's not entirely in the realm of ethics. And so that's why it's a little ambiguous in the language, because what may offend somebody may not offend the other. It's allowing the avenue to self-correct before privately corrected before the public correction. That's what's proposed. That's the outline there. But again, this is a board-driven process. So if you want to change it, certainly provide what you recommend instead, and we can take a look to make sure that it's legally feasible.
Thank you. Thank you. Director Smith.
Yeah, I think the best way to approach this is we all have an opportunity to see this now. And I think it still needs some work, and I think our feedback back to the chair would be helpful.
Yeah.
I have several, and it's already been noted by other board members, lots of questions in some of the terminologies. There's a lot of shalls, and the very difficult to interpret words like derogatory. So I think that there's some concerns there. There's one point I want to make here, that I think that because we have statutory requirements in Form 700 by law and all of our boards, that we ought to make mention of that, because the one section here talks about there shall be no self-dealing or business by a member with the district members. But in that whole paragraph needs a lot of work. I think the easiest way to do it is that we statutorily fall into the Form 700 requirements and
Just make reference to that.
just make reference to that.
We've had that discussion, so
Yeah.
I'm happy to have that input.
Yeah, so I think it's just that, let's not try and get into forming new words of conflict of interest when we already have the statute that gives us clear definition of what statute of limitations are, or I mean, conflict of interest are, and we also all have to conform to that, and we all take the education on that every year. So why not just refer to that?
Thank you, Director Smith, for that comment. And are there any other directors' comments before I open it up to public comment?
There are two raised hands on.
Okay, if we could have the public identify themselves, then you have 3 minutes.
We have 2836. You said, we have two. So 2837, that's the first one I see left to right. If you could unmute. And
I did. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Great. Well, I just want to say that I think the board needs an ethic code, and not that it's ever going to be enforced. I don't think it ever is, hardly ever, but also the staff needs to have a strong ethics code. But what the staff does, the buck stops at the top. The person at the top, the people at the top, you, the board of directors, are responsible. If the staff gets out of control, or you're not aware, or you're rubber stamping, or you're all enjoying each other's company so much that, you're just all celebrating each other and letting things get by, the responsibility is at the top. When Lisa Reinheimer is telling Monterey County Weekly that it's going to be $110 million a mile to bring the train, this kind of thing needs to be held accountable, because that's not true. The MST, so you're all responsible. The MST TAMC memo that TAMC and MST both own land that they want to see developed near the proposed 5th Street station is an issue, but it seems that Lisa Reinheimer just wants to obfuscate and mislead, and no clear answers. And, I'm reading about this giggling in 8th Street that could be upwards worth of $4 million, but I don't think the TAMC memo had it wrong. That was Mr. Todd Muck, that TAMC memo. So, I think that we don't want to obfuscate and try to confuse the public or yourselves. I think things need to be put in a straightforward manner. She just said that's not one of the property, but then it says on your web, I'm looking at all MST owns 5 properties, well, there's 6 right here.
Mr. Rosen, let's stay on the subject, please.
Well, what I'm saying, what I'm saying is the board, reading your thing that the board is supposed to be independent. That's what it says, and not be independent of staff and the general manager. I think you need to be that way, and it's sort of an error of commission, and it is a lack of ethics, omission. If you don't oversee the staff and hold them accountable, hold their feet to the fire, and make them do the right thing, and so, you know, for the MST board to be going around saying that the railroad tracks aren't going to be removed, it's all over the internet, you know, the MST presentations.
Mr. Rosen, we are we are looking at board policy and performance items.
Well, what I mean is that this reflects on the staff, and so I mean the board who's allowing all these things to happen. So you need to have a very strong code of ethics and oversight. I don't expect that to happen at all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. May we hear from the second
Number ending in 1705.
If you could unmute yourself, please.
Yes, hello, yes, Lorna Moffett here. I'm very concerned about the code of ethics at MST and both the higher ups and the staff for misleading the public on several different issues. The route changes that make it more difficult for people like myself to take MST because it's so time consuming, and the transfers, all that to me is very, very unethical right now, because the most important thing that people need to do is to get out of their cars, whether it's EVs or gas driven, because EVs are still using gas at the power plants, okay? And the mining of the oceans and the mining for these batteries and all that is killing all of us and killing our planet. So to fool ourselves and say, okay, we're going to use this mode of transportation is just unethical. I'm not, wait a minute, let me just get to my point. Let me get to my point. So what I'm talking about is the ethics of
conduct for policy.
Can I just say my little piece, because I'm getting to the ethics of it. So if your board is ethical, you will start saying and giving the public something that they can use, that you yourself can use when you come to these meetings. And I think that's ethical. That's an ethical question that you as board members have destroyed. And you need to look at that, and you're not. And also the fact that you tell people that the railroad tracks are going to cost $150 million per mile, when the train track people say no, it's going to cost a mile, and you just skate over all those other, informations and research.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for your comments, Ms. Moffett, but you are not on point to the subject of what we're discussing. So we are going to, is there anyone else for public comment on this item? If not, I'm going to close public comment. I thank everyone for their comments, and we'll bring it back to the board. So due to time, I would suggest that, or through suggestions, that you bring back more comments to the board chair. Did we need a time on this, Carl? Or
I think over the next month, maybe by the next board meeting, have your comments either email or writing to the board chair at our next meeting, so that we can bring something back for your board's consideration in March.
Is that
sound reasonable?
It's reasonable.
Okay.
All right, well, with that, we will go ahead and, I'm sorry, I am running you guys a little late, So we'll move on to item 6B6. And this is the 4-year strategic plan discussion. Carl?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that?
I think I mentioned that at the introducing this workshop, that if you have thoughts or recommendations for facilitated strategic plan workshop, please get those back to me, as I'd like to have something done and started on the books between March, April timeframe. And those who were with us at the last strategic workshop, you kind of remember the process. If you don't, and would like any other strategic workshop you may have been attended to over your careers, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, what's going on, and so it's all pretty standard stuff that we go through here. Unless you have something earth-shattering that you want to share with us that's new in the strategic workshop facilitated session, please let me know and we'll look into it. Otherwise, it's more of the same.
Directors.
Just before we leave, make sure somebody picks up the $22 million sitting in the lobby.
Yeah.
It freaks me out every time I walk by a check sitting in the public lobby, but it's a very interesting large check sitting out there.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I
Director.
gotta find the right distance to get to get my mobile
No,
deposit.
no electric mobile deposit on your account.
Instead of a bar, so you can just.
Just put it right on the screen. Yeah.
Don't worry, I already deposited.
It's in the bank.
Are there any other directors, or you'll send out something, Carl, before the next
Yes.
strategic plan?
Yep. And just FYI, during the meeting, I got the notice to hit submit on the grant, and I hit the execute button. The money is now ours. Yeah. So when you saw me doing something over here, it wasn't that I wasn't listening. I just had 22 million other things there.
With that, if I could, I'll go ahead and open it up to the public one last time. Oh, public comment is open.
I don't see any comment.
And I will go ahead and close public comment. And this concludes our workshop. Did we want to go on to item 7, the reports, information items, they are in your packet. Any item 8, board reports, comments, or referrals at this time from meetings attended by board members at MST's expense. I believe I was the last one who turned my report in last month. I do have an extra copy of it here if you need it, of which I could give to Jeanette. Board member comments and announcements.
I do. Before, if you're not staying for the training, I have your stickers for your badge. So please
What if we
grab
are
it.
staying for the training?
Oh, if you're staying.
She still has a sticker for your badge.
I have an announcement about that, I'll let it.
Okay, so, so make sure you grab a sticker.
And Kelly?
And we have lunch right out here that people can grab.
Alright.
And then Daniel will be guiding people to the bus to get on if you are taking the bus over for the training event. If you have to leave early, then I encourage you to take your own vehicle over to the training area, like myself. And then that way you can just drive from there. We can kind of caravan over if that's for some individuals who can't stay the duration. Daniel, it's on the corner of Giggling and 7th, so you turn down 7th Street. From Giggling, and you just go like.
Corner of Giggling and 7th.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Doesn't have an address. Just
It
look for
doesn't
the
have
old
an address.
empty buses.
Yeah, look for some Connex boxes and. But there is lunches out there. I encourage you to grab your lunches and see you at the training course. And we do have a bus to take you.
There, any board referrals or.
Yes, sir.